Tracy's fan club where people can go and watch. But because in Cote d'Ivoire also it will be quite late, obviously many people will enjoy it at home as a family in front of a meal and drinks and hoping that Cote d'Ivoire will win. And believe me, if Cote d'Ivoire win, doesn't matter how late it will be at night, but people will take out to the street.
Mamadou, enjoy the game. It's been a joy talking to you. Ivorian football journalist Mamadou Gueye with us on 5 Live Sport ahead of this one coming from Group E, where earlier on Germany, well, they decimated Curacao in the second half. It finished 7-1 to Julian Nagelsmann's side. This one expected to be a lot tighter. I'm looking at that front line, Curtis Davis, and the fact there's no Wilfried Zaha, no Sebastian Haller, both left out, but a heavy reliance on Nicolas Pepe. He's the only attacker in the squad over the age of 24, and he's expected to produce.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I think whenever we in England think of Pepe, we think of the Arsenal Pepe, but he's actually doing good things again now, and that's the thing. It's the Pepe that maybe got signed by Arsenal, and he's back to doing good things. So I think it's one of those situations where you look and you see Pepe, yes, his age is one thing, but also the other side, Yan Diomande, he's somebody that has been, a lot of teams have meant to been caught in his services and trying to get him over the line. Only 19 years old, already a hot prospect that's from Leipzig, and will want to make big steps in this World Cup to show not only can he do it obviously in Leipzig and on the German level, but he can do it on the world level. And what a better opportunity to do it against a good Ecuador side, and particularly an Ecuador side that doesn't concede many goals.
It feels like shop window time, doesn't it, FM, for someone like Yan Diomande?
It certainly does. Lots of focus on him, attention. Will he be able to handle that expectation from perhaps from within himself to start with? Of course, when the nation is behind you as well, it's extra pressure. But the talent is there, and so hopefully his teammates can give him the platform to perform it. We mustn't get too carried away and be putting too much pressure on these young players as well. We've seen players as good as him, as highly rated as him, as more famous as him, who've not been able to handle all the pressure and expectation when they've come to a World Cup at 19 or 20 years of age. So I hope he can, and I hope that his teammates are able to perform well enough that he can show everybody just how good he is.
I just wonder, Efan, in terms of this Ivory Coast side, they've never been past the group stage, but they haven't qualified for the last 2 tournaments. This is a big tournament for them, having won the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah, rebuilding. 2023 was a massive year for them, to be AFCON winners. It's the last chance saloon for quite a few players as well. Pepe is 31. A few of the other players as well may not make, or certainly wouldn't make one more.
Well, Pepe himself has said this is it. He doesn't expect to be with the international team in 4 years' time.
Yeah, Kessié as well, perhaps. Jean-Michel Seri for sure. So these guys, you would imagine, have got that extra determination to make sure that they can perform as well as they can at the ages that they are at. The younger players are coming through. African football, in terms of the competition with the second-tier nations over the last 10 to 12 years, is really has tightened up. There's no Nigeria here. Ghana have not qualified for World Cups before. But they are back. Ivory Coast are back this time round. So the competition is getting tougher and tougher each qualifying phase. So when you get there, you have to produce your best, and you hope that everybody's focused, to show exactly what they are capable of at such a big tournament.
Curtis, how do you expect this first 45 to play out?
I think, again, very cagey. I just expect Ecuador to very much be playing in the transitions, defending really well, trying to get away on the breaks, and it's not just about Ivory Coast making sure they don't make mistakes. Sometimes it can be a case that when you try and force things and you start to leave yourselves too open, start getting too much joy with the ball in terms of having a lot of the ball, you can then leave yourselves open at the back, and it's just about making sure that, keep the back door shut. But I expect a cagey first half, but I think one goal, it could just open up, but not from Ecuador's side. I think it'd be whether or not Ivory Coast would keep going for the throat and try and go again, because Ecuador just don't seem to concede many. But again, are they going to score many? I don't really know about that either. So I hate to say it, but it just smells of a 1-0 or a 0-0, unfortunately.
Just seeing the Ecuador players making their way from the dressing room, having spent some time at that stadium in Philadelphia last year. I can tell you they walked from the dressing room to the tunnel. It feels like absolute miles. You have to go down a long, narrow corridor and then swing a right and then go down a ramp until you meet your opponents. We've seen Moises Caicedo, hair bleached blonde, and Enner Valencia, formerly of West Ham United, at the top of the tunnel. This is World Cup Group E. Earlier on, it finished Germany versus Curacao. Now that it's time for the Ivory Coast versus Ecuador, live here on 5 Live and on BBC One and the iPlayer, in the company of Efan Akoku and Chris Coles.
Thank you, Aaron. From the pictures we are seeing from Philadelphia, World Cup fever in Pennsylvania is alive and well. A carnival of colour. It really is a spectacular scene to greet the two sets of players onto the field. The yellow from the Ecuador supporters, pretty much everywhere you look around the stadium. They have travelled in their thousands, and the Ivorians are there in numbers as well, in their orange. So we have this vivid scene of the green seats of the Philadelphia Stadium, home of the Philadelphia Eagles, who predominantly play in green in the NFL, and the yellow and the orange of Ecuador and Ivory Coast. Scenes now that we are well accustomed to in this World Cup, the two gigantic flags, the Ivory Coast flag to the left and the Ecuador flag to the right. The players making the long journey, as Aaron has just described, from dressing room to mouth of the tunnel and now all the way to the halfway line. And as we are also well accustomed to, every single player will make the journey around the centre circle to enjoy the national anthems. Efan Akoku alongside. Brings back memories, I'm sure, Efan. You were part of the Nigeria squad that made USA 1994. And looking around, or looking at the pictures from the Philadelphia Stadium, there doesn't look like to be an empty seat.
No, awesome sight, isn't it? A little bit more razzmatazz than it was 32 years ago when I was in the Nigerian squad. You know, things just take that a little bit longer, you know, before we see the first ball being kicked. But fantastic occasion once again. Great to be at the World Cup, you know, to see the best players on show every 4 years. It truly is a remarkable spectacle.
So the last of the players are making their way around the huge FIFA flag in the centre circle. And before we kick off, we shall observe the two national anthems. There's no doubt Ecuador are dominating in terms of the crowd, but there are Ivorians dotted here and there, and they were singing their national anthem with real gusto. Well, if there was an award for passionate singing of a national anthem, then Ecuador would be right up there, from supporters and players alike who all had their right hands placed across their chests. This means a lot for Ivory Coast and Ecuador, who are certainly eyeing progression through Group E. And given Germany's thrashing of Curacao, there's probably a feeling from both Ivory Coast and Ecuador that they have more than enough to see off Curacao and therefore at least finish in the top 3. And if you're in the top 8 in that third place position, then you will be heading
Look forward to what is hopefully an entertaining game.
Yeah, let's hope so, albeit, as Curtis mentioned before kickoff, even though he was trying his hardest not to do it down with two excellent defences, you do wonder what sort of game we will see. They were phenomenal in qualifying, both of these nations. Ivory Coast didn't concede in any of their 10 games, and Ecuador only conceded 5 in their 18. So defence is very much on top in qualifying. We shall see what the story is when this game gets underway, as the players break away from the handshakes. So an opportune moment to run you through the two 11s. For Ivory Coast, they were so impressive in the build-up to this tournament, beating France in their final warm-up game. So no surprise that Emerse Faye has predominantly gone with the same 11, just a couple of changes from that side. Nicolas Pepe is back in it, and Bazumana Toure is up front. So Yaya Fofana is the goalkeeper. A back four of Djiele Doué, who is the older brother of Desiré of France. Wilfred Singo, Emmanuel Agbadou, who had a spell at Wolves earlier this season, and Gilles Conan, the back four. The two in midfield, Seko Fofana, formerly of Fulham, and Franck Kessie, who is very much their engine room in midfield, winning cap number 104. And then further forward, Jan Diamande, who is catching the eye in the Bundesliga for Leipzig. Lots of big clubs interested in his signature, so it could be a big World Cup for him. Nicolas Pepe, and then Bazumana Toure and Eli Wahi leading the line for Ivory Coast. And for Ecuador, their captain, Enner Valencia, is fit, and that is good news because he tends to score the majority of Ecuador's goals. Indeed, 6 of the last 7 Ecuador World Cup goals have come from Enner Valencia. So he starts and captains the side, cap number 106. Hernan Galindez is the goalkeeper, 39 years old. A back three of Hincapié, Pacho and Ordóñez. There will be not too many sides that boast better quality than that in the back line. Vite, Moises Caicedo, Franco and Minda make up the midfield, and then Yeboah, Plata and Valencia up front, with lots of familiarity on the bench as well for followers of the Premier League, the likes of Purvis Estupinian, who now plays in Italy for AC Milan, and for Ivory Coast, Amad Diallo, who was very close to starting this evening, is only on the bench, along with Evan Guessond, who had a spell at Palace on loan from Aston Villa. Both sides in their pre-match huddles. The countdown will begin, and the second match in Group E will begin, the first ever meeting between Ivory Coast and Ecuador, and a meeting of the two youngest squads in this World Cup. And Effen, do you go along with the pre-match consensus, which appears to be this might be quite tight to start?
No, I don't.
Good.
No, I think, we'll get a surprise. I think the opening game, can be that little bit cagey, but I think, considering what is at stake and knowing that there's a great chance for them to progress if they get off to a good start, we'll perhaps just shake off the shackles of quite a few of the players.
And we are underway in Philadelphia to great noise. The green seats of the stadium, we can't see any of them because mostly they're occupied by supporters in yellow and orange. Ecuador are getting us underway in their dark blue shirts, white shorts and white socks. They're going from right to left as we watch, and Ivory Coast all in orange with a hint of green trim down the sleeves and at the top of the shorts. And the first meaningful action of the game is an Ecuador attack led by Piero Hincapié. It drops out of play for a goal kick to Ivory Coast, who are tipped by many to have a very good tournament after a promising cycle which included the AFCON in 2023, won in quite remarkable circumstances on home soil, but they have had a very good qualifying campaign and an excellent build-up to this tournament, culminating in that mightily impressive 2-1 win over France in France. Ecuador keeping safe possession in the opening minute on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds, and also available on the red button and the iPlayer, with this game live on BBC One television as well. If you'd like to listen to our commentary alongside, then you can do via the iPlayer and the red button. First shrill blast of the referee from Francois Letexier as the ball drops out of play for an Ecuador throw near side the left. We see our first shot, Efan, of Sebastian Becasese, the Ecuador head coach. Very stylish with his blonde hair swept back. He's on his haunches. He is a disciple of Marcelo Bielsa, so perhaps we shouldn't be surprised to see him on his haunches already.
Oh, many a coach is, isn't he? And Marcelo Bielsa seems to be the godfather, doesn't he, of some of the modern-day football we see.
Ecuador with the first chance to attack. Moises Caicedo, right foot shot from range. Didn't really catch it, dragged it a hint, but that's the first sign of Ecuador moving forward. And it's Moises Caicedo, who doesn't score many for his country, and he wasn't too close to scoring there. No,
he's dragged that one horribly wide of the post, hasn't it? That's some 12 yards. Always moving away from the goal from right to left. As he said, not noted for his goal scoring, but when he does for his club side anyway, Chelsea's tend to be quite spectacular. And the heart of that engine room for Paraguay. So Ecuador, Paraguay on the brain.
It's a long tournament, Effa.
Yeah, it is.
Emerse Faye appears on the screen as well, the Ivory Coast manager who took charge midway through AFCON in 23. You might remember this story. Ivory Coast did qualify out of the group only just, but Jean-Miguel Gasset was sacked. Yeah, he was sacked after a 4-0 defeat to Equatorial Guinea. In comes Emerse Faye and wins the tournament in his first few games. Remarkable. Ecuador dominating possession in these early stages. Alan Minda comes in field, looks to link up with Vite. He's bundled off the ball unceremoniously. Fairly, says the referee. A couple of challenges snap into the midfield. Valencia then has his legs taken from underneath him by Kessie, and the referee does give the free kick and charges in at great pace to ensure there were no further shenanigans there.
Well, I'm not sure why the referee charged over. Some 15 or so yards. He sprinted as hard as any of the players have done so far, didn't he? Right from the middle of the pitch as Frank Kessie went to dispossess in Valencia near the touch line. There wasn't too much in a challenge. Robust from the Ivorian captain. Clearly a foul. The referee blew the whistle. Valencia didn't make too much of it. The referee was the one who seemed to be inflaming the situation.
Yeah, he charged over at some lick, did Francois Letexier. There was no real need to intervene, and Valencia looked accusingly at Franck Kessie, but was unlikely to take it any further than that. Ecuador keeping the ball at the back. Hernan Galindez, 39 years old, plays his football in Argentina. Made his debut at 34, so a fairly late bloomer, but he is unquestionably Ecuador's #1. Pacho plays it downfield, hopefully. This will be headed away by Singo in the Ivory Coast back line. Picked up by Valencia, who will go all the way back into his own half. And at the moment, Ivory Coast quite happy to allow Ecuador possession.
Yeah, good start from the South Americans, keeping the ball well.
Here's another one for Gonzalo Plato to chase. Singo comes across and deals with him with minimal fuss. Emmanuel Agbadou lining up with Wilfried Singo in the back line. Formerly of Wolves, he joined Besiktas in February. Wolves liked him, there was definite potential there, but such was the torrid season that Wolves had, with interest in Agbadou and the defender keen to join Besiktas, his current club, it was a deal that was not really halted by Wolves. Maybe a bit of a surprise that Odilon Kosunu, who has been such a regular part of this Ivory Coast side, he's been very good for Atalanta this season, isn't playing and is only on the bench. Somewhat of a surprise. Effen, he's a player I know that you like, Odilon Kosunu.
Yeah, I've seen him, quite a bit over the last few years, along with Evan Indika, who's not quite match fit. I think those two guys are the best pairing for the Ivorians. But of course, you have to trust your squad. So if players not particularly fit, or one or two are not performing as well as you would expect them to, you have to be brave enough to make those changes. And as Max Grader was saying, in the interview before the game, he told some half an hour or so ago, is that MSV manages the plays very well. So there has to be that trust between both parties. Otherwise, you can very easily lose players at this tournament. People who don't feel as if they're part of the group.
Yeah, being part of a team seems to be a big theme of a lot of managers' selections in this World Cup. Ivory Coast are keeping the ball, and you might be able to hear the whistles from the crowd, which is certainly Ecuador dominated. And we can see the plethora of yellow shirts watching on whenever the camera zooms out. This vast stadium in Philadelphia, a few miles south of the city centre, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. Temperature just a tad under 30 degrees. There are a few thunderstorms in the area, and we know that that'll be a hot topic as the tournament continues, but the hope is they'll only arrive a little bit later when this game is done and dusted. Diomande, little poked ball forward, looking for the run of Toure. Ecuador deal with that. Caicedo's in the way, and the ball played over to Minder, who's on that far side, the right, in his purple boots. Back in field to Caicedo. A couple of touches inside the centre circle. Now Vite steps away from 3 challenges. That was useful, but then runs into an orange wall. And Ivory Coast win the ball back. There's a little nudge on Kessie by Valencia, who gets one back on his Ivory Coast opponent, and it is Ivory Coast with this free kick just inside their own half. We are through 7 minutes on 5 Live in BBC Sounds as Jay-Z appears on the screen. FN, we've got Hollywood stardom. What Hollywood stardom? We've got musical royalty.
Yeah,
he probably is in Hollywood these days.
I think he's in a bit of everything, Jay-Z, to be honest, isn't he? Movie director, perhaps, isn't he?
Yeah, sure he is. Well, he's taking in
songwriter. In the posh seats, as you'd imagine.
He very much is in the posh seats. Overlooking Ivory Coast moving forward. Diomande, angle of the penalty area. First real sight of this exciting youngster, 19-year-old. The first Ivorian teenager to play at a World Cup. There's great excitement over Yan Diomande. He couldn't really make any progress there. And Ecuador out of play for a throw in their left-back position.
It's been a frantic start, actually. I thought it might be just out there in more control, but as I said, players are desperate to burn off that nervous energy that they've been building up over the last 2 to 3 weeks. But once things are settled down, we've probably reached around that 20-minute mark. The players will start to play at a tempo that they are more used to and know it's going to be easier to maintain the longer the match goes on.
Kessie has it for Ivory Coast. Prods the ball forward with the outside of his right boot, but in very quickly was Alan Franco in the Ecuador midfield to prevent Ivory Coast moving forward. Ecuador have seen the majority of the ball in the opening 8, nearly 9 minutes in Philadelphia, but yet to really create anything of note on this remarkable 19-game unbeaten run, and it's why expectations are so high for this team. Caicedo can't get the ball away from Agbadou, moves over to that right-hand side, and Ivory Coast can skip their way forward, although not overly successfully. Not too much room to play, and Ghislaine Conan has to settle for a throw in his left-back position. Ecuador pressing well.
Yeah, 2 athletic teams at the moment. It's been very difficult to get anything going in the middle of the park. You take one touch too many and somebody quickly shuts you down. That's been happening for both sides, really.
Earlier today in this group, Germany 7, Curacao 1. A dominant victory for Germany over the smallest nation at this World Cup.
So glad they got a goal at least. Yeah.
It was a fine moment, wasn't it?
An equaliser as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were a few who were dreaming of an upset. It was never going to happen, really, was in Germany. Bared their teeth, didn't they? They poked the bear.
Well, at that point, before the drinks break, Curacao were on top, and then the drinks break came, and it rather killed their momentum, allowed Germany to regroup. This game is 0-0 on 5 Live between Ivory Coast and Ecuador. We've seen lots of football in midfield, but not so much in the attacking thirds. That might change now. Hincapie's ball across, a slip, and now Valencia for Ecuador! Over the top. Brilliant opportunity for Ecuador. The flag may have gone up anyway, but that's a big chance for Ecuador's big player. Hincapie's cross. There was a slip at the back. Valencia set it himself, but his left foot shot way over the bar.
Yeah, there was a big slip. Aguado, I think it was, who went to ground. Yeah, not once but twice actually, as the ball is fired over from Pero. Hincapie on the left side. The ball had actually left the field of play, and that's why the flag had gone up. Valencia did well to keep his composure, to come back from right to left, and making Aguado slip for the second time. He's only about 10 yards out, but lays it over the crossbar. Even if it had hit the back of the net, that would have been pulled back.
Yeah, good spot, Efan. It wasn't offside. It was Hincapie unable to keep the ball in play on this near side, the Ecuador left. It did look suspiciously like it had drifted out of play, but the assistant referee didn't flag, but alerted the referee the moment the ball flew over the crossbar. But it wasn't a great moment for Emmanuel Agbadou, who might be checking the base of his boot. Didn't have much grip there as the ball came hurtling across the penalty area. Ivory Coast are just struggling to get their foot on the ball here, although they do now. Singo, Kessie exchange a couple of passes. Doué, Diamande, Kessie and Doué again, and this is better from Ivory Coast as they look to settle into the game. Later on tonight, or later on this morning, we have Sweden and Tunisia in Group F, the second game in Group F after a very entertaining game we heard with John Murray and Paul Robinson on 5 Live. 2-2 between the Dutch and Japan.
Yeah, great game that was, wasn't it? Some fantastic goals.
Slow burner, but then really did
yeah,
ignite.
it was. Yeah, the last 20 minutes was good, good stuff.
And then tomorrow, Group H gets underway. We see the European champion Spain against Cape Verde. That's a 5 o'clock kickoff. Later on, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay at 11, also in Group H, and sandwiched in between at 8 o'clock, Belgium against Egypt. All 3 games live with us on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Well, the first Mexican wave is going around the stadium. That's not a good sign, 12.5 minutes in. Rather sums up the game that we are watching so far, but it's not a surprise that we're watching 2 sides that are a little bit cagey, given the qualifying campaigns that both had, and given the defensive records that both had.
Yeah, they call it the Mexican wave, but from my knowledge, I believe it originated in American college football.
Did it really?
It stands, yeah. I don't know how it got named the Mexican wave, but I don't think they invented it.
Well, that's one to find out. Why is it called the Mexican wave? Here come Ecuador, edge of the penalty area, left foot shot just over the crossbar. Well hit John Yeboah, who had a fraction of space just outside the box. No one closing him down. Thought, why not? And it wasn't too far away.
No, not at all. He worked it well with John Yeboah. Picks up the ball just outside the Ivorian box, right on the angle on the right side, and then cuts in, and the goalkeeper, just for the moment or so, Yahya Fofana, is a little bit concerned. He was never really coming down, but so he worked it, got it himself 5 yards in field. His first real dangerous moments.
Loose touch by Hincapie. I don't often say that. Allows Diamande to steal possession. No real danger for Ecuador. This is all on the halfway line for Fana and Conan, with a couple of passes to each other over halfway, and now back into the Ivory Coast half with nearly 14 minutes played. Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0. Signs that Ivory Coast are just struggling with their touches in midfield. Diamande, who's only 19, has great pace and is a very promising winger, but is well built, isn't he, Yan Diamande? You often associate 19-year-old wingers as being quite wiry and quite thin, but Yan Diamande is already very well built and has great strength for someone so young. Ball in field to Wahi. Here is Diamande, just on the angle of the penalty area, near side the right. Wanted to go forward, but that path to goal was blocked.
He's certainly patient enough as well. You know, when I watched him, it's the first time I'm watching him live, and nice to see that he's not always thinking about getting the ball and trying to take on opposing players, and obviously playing within the team structure, showing good maturity. There's good competition as well for places, isn't there, on the flanks. Ivorians have got some decent players on the bench. Adingra, Diallo as well from Manchester United. So
Yeah,
good options.
Two players we know well in the Premier League, Simon Adingra and Ahmed Diallo, albeit Adingra spent the last half of the season on loan at Monaco, having failed to break into the Sunderland side. Now there's space for Diomande operating on this near side, the right, tiptoeing towards the edge of the penalty area. Now he's in it, laid off to Kessie, who goes for goal. That was deflected on its way through. That would have been a save for Galindez in the Ecuador goal to make. Had it not taken a deflection, it was a big block. And now Ivory Coast are coming forward again. Diomande, stationary on the angle, near side the right. Caicedo to try and jink past. He has support from Gila Due, his cross blocked at source by Nkapie. That'll be a battle to keep an eye on. That's a risky turn back by Singo, and it allows Ecuador to break forward, although the ball forward to Valencia making the run was slightly under hit, and that allows Ivory Coast to win back the ball. But just signs, Effen, in the last couple of moments that this game has come to life.
Yeah, Ivorians all of a sudden just starting to get their passing together. Nice that a little bit of rhythm, recovering the ball, while also when they've been dispossessed or they've given it away, and Diomande's getting lots of nice touches as well.
Plenty of space for Kessie now, and the low ball across goal is only just wide. That's a big Ivory Coast chance, who went through the gears beautifully there. Toure with the pass across goal. He may well have been going for goal, the 20-year-old. Either way, it was only just wide of Hernan Galindez left post.
He struck it firmly in his side foot. I thought it was actually a cross to begin with, and yeah, we're just seeing on the replays again. Yeah, that's a cross, but yeah, goalkeeper saved that.
Actually, it's a touch from Galindez, isn't it?
Great touch from the goalkeeper. I think it's probably going to hit the post, isn't it, at best for Ivory Coast, but it was certainly a pass, I think, from Bazumana Toure, which the officials didn't spot, was tipped round the post by the goalkeeper.
Yeah, that may well have been creeping in. That's a terrific save from the 39-year-old, who goes long early. And here's an opportunity now for Ecuador with Plateau, who's burst into the box left-hand side. He tried to cut back infield on his right foot, did Alan Minder, but he didn't really have the space to operate. And suddenly there are openings in this game. Ivory Coast now flooding forward in their orange shirts. The focus of this latest attack is on their left-hand side. Conan in field. Seko Fofana takes over. Now Wahi back to Toure and across to Diomande, who now has more and more space in which to trouble the Ecuador defence. Lovely footwork. Oh, Wahi didn't connect with his right foot shot at the front post. And that's another big Ivory Coast opportunity. Diomande made it with a lovely piece of skill, but Wahi couldn't get the necessary contact.
Yeah, great free from Diomande. Cuts inside, a little shuffle two-step, wasn't it? And played it so quickly that he took the Ecuadorian defence by surprise, and Wahid just moving inside the 6-yard box just outside the post. Wasn't able to connect with that sweetly, but Diomande all of a sudden really finding his rhythm. He said sensible with his play. Oh, there's the first time he goes around.
He's taking Nkapie on and beating Nkapie. Well, great. There's a measure of the confidence of the 19-year-old. I think you can probably count on one hand the number of times Piero Nkapie was beaten like that this season, but Diomande flew past him with ease.
Variety. Inside, outside. He's done a little bit of everything in his opening 15 or so minutes. He's showing nice composure, getting the ball his first couple of touches, nothing extravagant at all, just controlled it, laid it off, nice and simple. All of a sudden now, the last few minutes really warming to his task. That's a sign for Nkapie to perhaps just concentrate on defending this young kid for the next few minutes.
It's easy to see why there are so many big clubs looking at Yan Diomande, and if he has a big tournament, then Leipzig may well be cashing in for big money. Ivory Coast corner, far side the left, headed away, and will be picked up by Seko Fofana under no real pressure. Referee's blown his whistle because Moses Caicedo is on the floor just by the penalty spot. Looks okay, has a word with the referee. Not too sure what happened there. Efan didn't quite see, obviously, the Ecuador players are not happy with something here. We'll have a look at the replay.
Yeah, Caicedo went to ground just so when he was caught on by Wilfred Singo.
Singo, yeah.
Singo. Yeah, he just catches him, has a little flick out, doesn't he? Catches him on the thigh, and maybe the referee thought that Caicedo picked up a head injury, and now he's asking him to leave the field, I believe. Can that happen? He is, yeah, has to leave the field.
Well, yes, has to leave the field now for a minute. Part of the new rules, the tranche of new rules that we've seen in this tournament. And one of them is exactly this. There are a few mitigations, but if you do go down,
Don't stay down
Don't
unless
stay
you're
down
injured.
unless you're injured, absolutely.
Do not stay down. Don't be trying to get an opponent booked or sent off unnecessarily. That'll be a lesson for Caicedo, you'd imagine.
So our referee, Francois Letexier,
I must admit, I do like it.
very quick. Well, if it speeds up the game,
Yeah,
then I don't think
absolutely.
there will be
Yeah.
too many complaints. So, to use American parlance here, Ivory Coast have a bit of a power play with one more man. With a minute, Moises Caicedo has to stay off the field, although they're not really taking advantage of it, keeping possession as they are inside the Ecuador half, but much closer to the halfway line than the penalty area. Still, Moises Caicedo waits. He's like a coiled spring over there, desperate to come back on. He's got his arms
He's not
outstretched.
had the many, I'd leave him off for 2 minutes, to be honest. That'll really teach them.
But a minute, it must feel a long time when you're standing
Yeah,
there.
absolutely, yeah.
Still, he's not allowed. Maybe no one's told him it's a minute, not 30 seconds. He's furious. He's now giving a rocket to the assistant referee on that far side. You might have just heard him there on the effects mic. Now he's allowed back on.
Careful.
Ivory Coast didn't take advantage of that, really. Diomande, who has been lively in this opening 21 minutes on 5 Live and BBC Sounds, going cross-country, back onto his right foot. He's away from Hincapié again. Low ball across. Very nearly back into Ivory Coast possession. It is now more loose Ecuadorian defending, and we haven't said that too often over the last 2 years. Still Ivory Coast come forward. Guila Doué didn't look as he played that back and straight to Enna Valencia, who does win the free kick. Wilfred Singo. There's a little bit of a melee and a bit of needle between those two, Valencia and Singo. And Enna Valencia threatened to turn that a little bit ugly. Now he's claiming he got a knock on the head, and the refereeing quickly to calm that down. But once again, Efan Diomande ghosting around Hincapié.
Yeah, it's not much of a contest at the moment right now. I mean, this one isn't it? Just seen the replay again. Physical battle. Singo has come. I mean, he's 15 yards outside the Ecuadorian penalty area. He's hustling Valencia, making sure that he doesn't have time to control, turn, and see what his options are. And just getting under the skin of the Ecuadorian captain at the moment. Côte d'Ivoire in charge.
Yeah, they've definitely wrestled back the initiative, haven't they, after Ecuador saw a lot of the ball. And with 22 and a bit minutes played, the hydration break is looming,
Isn't it? Yeah.
sad to say, purely from a enjoyment of the game perspective, because we don't really want this rhythm to be disrupted, as it undoubtedly will be when the drinks break arrives. Ivory Coast loose with the ball, and the left foot shot is off the crossbar. John Yeboah, terrific effort. Cannons off Fofana's crossbar and to safety. Ecuador can still keep the pressure on here, just on the edge of the penalty area. Hincapié, maybe he'll have more success going forward than defending. Roll back to Vite, and now Caicedo directing traffic. That's a good challenge by Singo. Doesn't win the free kick. The right foot shot comes in from Minder and wide, and that will be a goal kick. But John Yeboah, now with his head in his hands, crashing the Ivory Coast crossbar.
Terrific hit, wasn't it? But it was a mix-up at the back. It was indecision from two Ivorian players, Emmanuel Agbadou and Ruslan Kone, two experienced players, allowing the ball to bounce. And then where was Yeboah? He just stole it, didn't he? Cut inside. Agbadou wasn't able to get back and cover him from that right side once again, cutting in on his left foot and crashed it off the crossbar on the way to safety. Eventually.
Yeah, it's the last couple of minutes have seen chances for both, and now the hydration break allows, well, firstly the players to get some drinks, but also for Moises Caicedo and Enna Valencia, two of the senior members in this Ecuador side, to have a rather animated conversation with referee Francois Letexier about a couple of things. Well, producer Nathan has been busy, Efan, and he's found out the origin of the Mexican wave, which originated in North America sports arenas in the late 70s. You're absolutely right.
What do I get for that?
Yeah, you get an approving smile from me and Nathan.
Is that all?
That's all you get.
Terrible.
I'm afraid. It's early in the competition. We can't give prizes out too early, enough. You see.
It was my birthday last week as well.
Oh, was it?
Said, yeah, I would have got a cake, I suppose, wouldn't I?
Well, happy birthday for then.
Cupcake, maybe. Yeah. Just seen that replay again. A fantastic hit, wasn't it, from Yeboah?
It was.
Yeah, so unlucky.
Left foot shot.
We'll see so much brilliance over the next 4.5 weeks or so in this tournament, but there are so many big matches that will be decided by errors as opposed to brilliance. You might get a combination of both, but the ones that turn the games from something that's quite dull into something interesting, usually, well, not usually, but quite often, it's as a result of poor decisions. Sometimes 60 yards away from your own goal in the middle of the park, right outside the box, a goalkeeper trying to play through the middle, as we saw with the South African goalie in the first game.
Yeah.
It takes all sorts to win and lose a football match at this level, or indeed at any.
Spider cam swoops around the Philadelphia Stadium, the Lincoln Financial Field, the Link as it's known to Philadelphia Eagles fans. We get terrific views of this fine stadium. It is quite a strange sight if we are used to watching your European football and used to the bowl-like arenas, to see the NFL stadiums that have huge gaps behind the goals mainly. Steep tiers, steep three-tier stands, mostly open air. But behind the goal is often quite large gaps. But attendances have been a theme in the early stages of this competition as the hydration break comes to an end. But certainly from the shots that we're seeing, Efan, there are very few empty seats.
Yeah, very few, if any at all. Of course, it's not too far a trip, is it, from Ecuador to Philadelphia? Well, I'd say not too long. Probably at least 5 hours, isn't it? Maybe even 6.
The voice of Efan Okoku, former Nigeria international, who got his first taste of a World Cup in the United States back in 1994. When your Nigeria side, I think it's safe to say, shocked the world with your run through a very difficult group that included Argentina. You took Italy to extra time
Bulgaria in that group as well.
Bulgaria, with Hristo Stoichkov, etc.
Yeah, you know, the first time that you get to a World Cup for an emerging nation, if you like, in football in terms, is usually, well, not usually, but very, very often it can be your best chance when your players are not as well known. And now, the scouting networks all over the world, over Europe, Africa, Asia, South and North America is much greater, so players are seen before they arrive at the World Cup. Certainly, you need the talent, and we certainly had that.
Well, we're back underway in Philadelphia. 28 minutes have elapsed. Let's hope that hydration break, the drinks break, hasn't affected the rhythm of this game. I don't think it has, because there's a very aggressive challenge by Seko Fofana, who has gone hurtling into Caicedo, and that does produce the first yellow card of the game. Fofana clearly late, and that's probably a justified yellow card.
No, that was silly. Caicedo's not going anywhere, receives the ball 10 yards from infield, just inside the Ivorian half, and he just comes crashing in. For such an experienced player, that's really poor play. Puts him now on a knife edge, isn't it, for the rest of the game. He's got to measure himself a lot more carefully with how he goes in challenge. I mean, that was a poor decision, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and then really an area of the field that Ecuador were likely to hurt Ivory Coast. Seko Fofana, formerly of Fulham, 31 years old, on loan from Rennes to Porto, where he had a very good spell, part of the Porto side that won the Portuguese top flight. And he's partnering Franck Kessie in that Ivory Coast engine room, but is now on a yellow card. Ecuador with the ball in their back line. Joel Ordóñez wanders forward with it, offloads to the far side, the right, and the yellow-booted Plateau, who can't go forward as quickly as he would want, so it's all the way back into the Ecuador half. BBC Radio 5 Live, BBC Sounds, with plenty of World Cup coverage to come over the coming days. 104 matches at this World Cup. Minder's cross is too deep for everyone, and that's a simple catch for Fofana inside the Ivory Coast goal.
That's about the first time I think that we've actually mentioned Gonzalo Plata as well, hasn't he? He's been very quiet.
Ivory Coast lose their way in midfield, and now Ecuador have another chance on the edge of the penalty area. The little turn and spin from Plata, who is becoming more influential in this game. The ball to Minder, who is onside and hits the crossbar for the second time in this game. Ecuador have hit Ivory Coast crossbar. Yeboah with his left foot, Minder with his right, and Ivory Coast are still intact here, but maybe not for long. The ball's on the edge of their own penalty area. Caicedo trying to trick his way through, still not clear. The ball working its way across the penalty area. Plateau, Caicedo, and the effort wide from Yeboah again. How unfortunate for Ecuador. They've hit the crossbar twice in the opening half an hour in Philadelphia.
Well, that was frantic, wasn't it? Yeah, Minda makes a fantastic run. Yeah, just crashing it back off the crossbar. He's unlucky, really, this time with his right foot. And on the other side of the penalty area as well. A superb ball, wasn't it? Just back inside the defender from Vite. On the left side of the box, a lovely defence and splitting pass just inside the box. Opened his body out superbly well as well, didn't he? Minda curled it around and over the goalkeeper. And unfortunate, once again, to hit the woodwork.
He did, as they say, everything right. He was just very unfortunate that his shot had a little bit too much power, but that is two superb efforts from Ecuador, and they have certainly had the more eye-catching chances in the opening 30, nearly 31 minutes on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. This Group E encounter between Ivory Coast and Ecuador is still at 0-0, but it is probably a more open game than I say most of us were expecting. Yeah. To be fair to you, not you. You were expecting something quite like this.
Yeah, too many good players on show for everybody, you know, to be shackled. And, so it's proved so far.
Long may it continue. Ecuador have it safely back. Now starting again from a deep position. Franco plays it down the inside right channel. An opportunity for Ecuador to have a little go on the right, where not too much of the play is gone. Yeboah is in field here with his pink boots. That's a nice little give and go, and a free kick right on the edge of the penalty area. No, referee was very quick to wave that away.
Good decision.
He felt that Vite went down a little too easily.
Good decision. It was Plato.
Plato, you're right, yeah.
Received the ball. It was a great piece of skill. He played a nice little 1-2, just 15 yards outside the Ivorian box, and just tried to drag the ball all in one stride and invited a challenge, which came, but not enough to convince the referee that it was a free kick on the edge of the box, and I agree.
And he was fairly emphatic, was the referee, in waving that away. Plato gave him a rueful look, but no free kick forthcoming for Ecuador. Ivory Coast in possession, near side the right. Diomande backwards of square. Kessie with a rather pronounced turn away. Felt he was under more pressure than he actually was, but in fact had more time than he realised. Diomande again. There's always a rise in expectation when he gets the ball. Plays it back across the penalty area. Kessie to Fofana, who, well, if the NFL post was still up, then that would have been a field goal, because that was way over the crossbar and out for an Ecuador goal kick. 0-0.
High wide and not so handsome, that one. Yeah, falling backwards. So Kessie just rolled it to him from 5 or 6 yards away, but he was still 10 yards outside the box. Seko Fofana.
7 goals in his 33 caps for his country, Seko Fofana. He's not in the team to be bending them in from 30 yards. More for his defensive play. Here is the Ecuador captain, Enner Valencia. 1 goal away from 50 in an Ecuador shirt. Very much the talisman of Ecuador, their all-time leading goal scorer. 6 goals in 6 World Cup appearances. He is...
What a record that is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why he's got legendary status in his country. He had that half chance earlier, although wouldn't have counted with the ball rolling out of play. Plato in field, loose touch by Nkapie, who was quite well advanced for Ecuador on the edge of the Ivory Coast penalty area.
And good record in qualifying as well, Valencia, wasn't he? 4th top scorer. Messi was top with 8.
That's right. Ecuador second behind Argentina in South American qualifying, which is why there is great expectation. Yeah. Well, the two wins over Brazil and Argentina in qualifying, finished ahead of the likes of Brazil and Colombia. This is a side very, very exciting under Sebastian Becasese, the Argentine manager. Here is Plato, level with the edge of the penalty area, cutting in field. Ecuador 0, Ivory Coast 0, albeit Ecuador have hit the crossbar twice. Ivory Coast have threatened mainly with this man, Leipzig's Yan Diomande, with his pink boots, and he goes accelerating away from Nkapie again. Into the box he goes, right foot ball, here's the chance, terrific tackle. Touré at the back post is shepherded out of play by Caicedo. What an opportunity for Nicolas Pepe, but what a brilliant block in there. Diomande made it. Pepe must have thought he'd scored. It opened up for him, and it's a brilliant sliding block by Alan Franco in the nick of time.
It is a great block. You're absolutely right, but if Pepe had a right foot, and then it would have been a shot first time. always thinking about bringing it back onto his left, and by the time he's done that, he's completely shut down. Yeah, fantastic defending from Ecuador in the end. And that was a chance missed, and once again, well, just brilliant play from Yandy Mane. Not only skinning Hincapié on the right side, but the vision and the awareness, the timing of the pass, superbly weighted for Pepe.
Well, I don't think Piero Hincapié has been tested like this all season. For Arsenal, for Ecuador, he is in a real fight on this left-hand side for Ecuador and Ivory Coast right, and Yandy Mane is making good of his wonder kid status.
Yeah, the old-fashioned term, I still think some coaches use it, that he's being roasted at the moment, isn't he? Yeah. Every time Diomande gets the ball, should be fearful.
Dare I say it, old-fashioned wing play. Get the ball into the box, beat your man, get the cross in.
We were talking about, weren't we?
We were.
An hour or so ago that we bemoaning the fact that we don't see wingers who are willing or have the ability to take on the defenders, not at will, but certainly when the opportunity is clearly there.
Free kick, Ivory Coast, in the heart of their midfield. Former Nigeria international Efe Nkoku with us on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. And it's been an enjoyable 36 minutes. There have certainly been more chances than I think the vast majority were expecting between these two who boast such good defensive records. 19 games unbeaten for Ecuador under Sebastian Becasese. And despite that, there are a few grumblings from those at home that maybe this Ecuadorian side are not as attacking as they need to be, and maybe that the attacking talent on display should be utilised far better than Sebastian Becasese is doing at the moment.
That usually comes from ex-players.
It was an ex-player, actually, Jefferson Montero.
Yeah, that surprised me. Yeah. It surprised me. They bemoan the fact that the team is not as exciting to watch as when they played, perhaps, but the bottom line is the team is probably getting better results than they ever have done. And this is the platform. If you're a solid side defensively, there's a chance that you can build from that.
Ecuador in their defensive third. Hincapié gets a touch with his left foot and goes all the way back to goalkeeper Galindez. This Ecuador's 5th appearance at a World Cup. They've only ever made it past the group stage once. And you might remember it in 2006 Germany, because their last 16 opponents were England. Wasn't an overly inspiring England win, but David Beckham's free kick, enough for Sven-Goran Eriksson's side to reach the quarter-finals. But there is expectation for this disciplined, athletic and eager side that they can reach the knockout stages again and maybe go even further than that. Another free kick conceded by Ivory Coast, and another yellow card is coming out here for Franck Kessie. So that's the 2 Ivory Coast midfielders on yellow cards for 2 very similar challenges. Fofana on Caicedo, and Kessie was just a little bit too keen to win the ball back from Hincapié in the heart of the Ecuador midfield.
There wasn't a lot in it, but it's an unnecessary challenge from the Ivorian captain. Does he catch Hincapié? Just seen the replay. Yes, he does. He stands on his left boot with his own left, and he let quite a few go in the opening 15 or so minutes, the referee. So I'm not against this yellow card. Kessié and Fofana were both fortunate perhaps not to be given a stern talking to, or a more stern one in the opening minutes of the match. He allowed it to breathe a little bit, and now he's clamping down.
Emerse Faye, the Ivory Coast manager, it's fair to say didn't agree with that, complaining to the 4th official. Emerse Faye in his white shirt, black baseball cap, white trainers, effervescent character on the touchline. The former Reading midfield was once upon a time Reading's record signing back in 2007. Ball out of play here for an Ivory Coast throw. 5 minutes to play until half-time. BBC Radio 5 Live. At half-time, Dotun Adebayo will be here with all of the latest news headlines, including that big breaking news before we kicked off here, the USA-Iran peace deal, and we'll get the rest of the latest sport as well. And what has been a busy day sport-wise, or it was busy yesterday, as we have to say, with Lewis Hamilton winning the Barcelona Grand Prix, his first win in Ferrari colours. Free kick for Ecuador here, and Valencia was fouled. I think you could probably hear his screams on the effects mic. It was
right by the touchline.
Yeah, Guele Due who came in with the challenge. He got a nasty left foot stamp, perfectly accidentally on his foot, but that looked like it hurt.
That was clumsy from Doué.
He's got a yellow card for it.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Valencia using all his experience just to shield the ball and just let it go out for play, and Doué dived in unnecessarily.
So 3 Ivory Coast players now on yellow cards: Fofana, Kessie and Guela Doué, the older brother of Desiré Doué, who you'd imagine will have a big tournament for France. He had a fine game against France, did Guela Doué. I mean, how often does this happen in football? He was up against his older brother, got a goal and assist in that brilliant 2-1 win for Ivory Coast. And he's kept his place in this Ivory Coast side. But defending for the 2023 AFCON winners to do, because this Ecuador free kick will be taken by Gonzalo Plata, level with the edge of the box, left-hand side. It's a great delivery in and headed over the bar by Valencia, but he got that free header because he fouled his man. Free kick given, and it remains Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0.
It was a great ball in, actually, wasn't it? Whipped him with lots of pace, good direction, height on it. Able to actually see where and who was fouled. Doué went to ground and he conceded a free kick, but no harm done in the end.
Didn't appear to be too much contact in the penalty area, but header was over the crossbar nonetheless. So Yaya Fofana, all in blue for Ivory Coast in goal, can resume and boot downfield, which he does, and goes long, cleared by Ecuador on the edge of their penalty area. Valencia battling away with his very short blonde hair, very similar haircut to Moises Caicedo, looking very mean. Singo caught in possession by Minda. Very scrappy passage of play breaks out. Maybe Ecuador can put their foot on the ball here with the smart turning Yeboah, and now Caicedo, heart of the Ecuador midfield with options left and right, scoops the ball over to Franco, far side the right, wanted to go forward, and you could see his disappointment as he bounces up and down in frustration that he wasn't able to make further progress on that right-hand side. Hincapié now for Ecuador. Lovely little dummy in midfield by Vite to keep Ecuador in possession. They move it smoothly from left to right again. The yellow-booted Plateau, Franco on the overlap, and across comes Agbadou. Ecuador throw, far side the right.
Yeah, players from both sides are matching their opponents, aren't they? Physically, largely. In fact, almost step for step, and certainly in terms of concentration as well. There's been the odd laps. Agbadou and Ruslan Kone, who were indecisive about who was actually going to go for one ball. Yeboah smashed it back off their crossbar, so they got away with that one. They've been the 2 best efforts so far. I mean, Ivory Coast have not created a clean chance. I think the best so far was the block shot from Pepe.
It was made by Diomande, yeah. Ecuador moving forward through the midfield third. Attempted pass forward by Caicedo, was blocked almost at source. Diomande now to the rampaging Pepe, who, apart from that opportunity that he had, has been fairly quiet for a player of his calibre. As Aaron was mentioning beforehand, sorry, Efan, he didn't really have a good time at Arsenal, did he? But he's certainly rebuilt his career in La Liga. You know,
Pepe's stats at Arsenal, not as bad as lots of people tend to make out. I think there was lots of expectation when you were bought for £72 million, and then no matter which club you go to, then there's always that level of expectation. You should be scoring goals, assisting, be very consistent. He certainly wasn't, but his goals return actually was the year he was there, second season perhaps, it was better than quite a few of the Man United players from recollection without looking at any stats. But the Arsenal fans, I think, were always looking for a scapegoat, and he was certainly one of them.
Yeah, not held by the price tag, £72 million, and was once upon a time the Arsenal record signing, but 8
Small
goals.
Change now, isn't
well,
it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that might only get his left leg these days. 8 goals and 8 assists in La Liga for Nicolas Pepe, having a bit of a renaissance, nominated for La Liga Player of the Season, just a measure of how good he'd been for Villarreal. Ecuador with 20 seconds of the first half to play and moving forward menacingly. Rather optimistic ball into the penalty area hit by Caicedo that was easily headed away. Kessie now roams forward for Ivory Coast, plays a diagonal that is a good diagonal as well. Beautifully taken down by Toure, and his cross is straight. into the hands of Galindez, who read his intention right from the off. And a fairly comfortable catch as we go into 4 minutes additional time at the end of the first half.
Good half of football. It's actually been a faster tempo than I thought it would be. It's a warm day, but both sets of players really cope with it well. In fact, it's not been sort of settled enough and slow tempo enough for you even to see just how, or exactly how teams looking, to go and break down the opposition. There's not been one clear area of the field where you could say, yeah, that's a real weakness, apart from this right side that Diamande has been operating in. The last few minutes, Hincapié has had just a little bit more support, so they've been trying to feed in the Ivory Coast, but not overly. Trying to make it too obvious. They've had a little bit of build-up play on the left-hand side as well, but Diamande so far has been the most likely to consistently break down an opposing defender.
Approaching 8 o'clock local time in Philadelphia, so the light just beginning to fade. We can see the very faint shadows from the floodlights as Diamande goes around Hincapié. Another low ball into the front post. Another dangerous cross from another dangerous Diamande run. This one takes a deflection off an Ecuador man and goes out for a very late first half Ivory Coast corner.
Yeah, just seeing the cross again early on. Fantastic crossfield ball from Frank Kessié to Bazumana Torre, who fired the ball across the face of the goal, but the goalkeeper read it well, and another replay as well of Diamande once again skinning Pierre Hincapié on this right side, and cut back, which was well blocked at the near post.
Resulting in this Nicolas Pepe corner, swings it in with his left foot. That was well headed away at the front post by Hincapié, picked up in the centre of midfield by Singo, who sprays it back out to corner taker Pepe. Instant control with his left foot. The ball swung into the penalty area, and the overhead kick was very optimistically hit by Wilfried Singo. Well, he doesn't score too many. He's only got one in his 35 caps, the centre-back. But that would be one to remember had he managed to overhead kick that in from 8 yards out. Over the bar it goes.
Yeah, if it comes off the shin, actually. Just seen the replay, and acrobatic enough. Ambitious, but worth a try, isn't it? If he scored that, we can all go home, I think.
Yeah.
Nice attempt, actually.
It was. Well, you mentioned it was...
acrobatic.
The World Cups are full of moments, great goals and mistakes. That would have been certainly the former. Diamande again given away by Hincapié, who's not had a good first half. Pepe's left foot shot deflected. Now, did that come off Wahi last? It did. It did, rather than Pacho, so it's a goal kick rather than a corner. But if Ivory Coast are to win this game and score, it's more than likely going to come from Yan Diamande.
Yeah. Pepe just snatched at that. He's usually a much better striker than football. Just that little bit anxious. It was, just swung at it just that little bit too much, and while he was moving across almost to actually get himself out of the way, and Pepe gives him a look of disgust, actually, but I think that ball was going wide anyway.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was troubling Hernan Galindez in the Ecuador goal, who's not had a huge amount to do. The one moment for Ivory Coast, it was Alan Franco in front of Galindez who made the good block. That's a foul by Kessie, who needs to be careful on a yellow card. Now, Ivory Coast had the ball there, but Kessie noticed that Caicedo was rushing back to help out and just gave him a little nudge, and that was enough for Francois Letexier to give the free kick.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot in it, to be honest. Caicedo was running across the face of Frank Kessie. He almost invites a challenge, but captain, with his experience, he should have known better just to back out, as the ball was nowhere near any Ecuadorian player. MS Faye is not happy on the bench.
He's not. He is...
It's been a good half, hasn't it? Very competitive.
Yeah, it's been a lot more competitive, I think, than many would have thought. But
I think what will please both of the coaches, actually, is that they know that their teams perform well under pressure. You know, their qualifying campaigns, despite the fact the level of opposition not as good on occasions, says that both sides are quite resilient.
And that is the half-time whistle. Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0. But it has been a very entertaining half in which Ecuador have hit the crossbar twice, from John Yeboah with his left foot cutting in field on the edge of the area, from Alan Minder with his right foot when he was played through, both flush off the crossbar. Ivory Coast's best moments have come from the exciting 19-year-old Yan Diomande, who has the better of Pierre Hincapié. There's no question about that. Several balls into the penalty area, one of them met by Nicolas Pepe, and his left foot shot was blocked by Alan Franco before Galindez had to make the save. So Effin, at half-time, both sides, you feel, will be fairly pleased with their opening 45 minutes of this World Cup.
I think so. I think they've both scrambled well in the middle of the park. Goalkeeper's not had too much to do. The Ivorian crossbar was rattled twice. At the other end, goalkeeper Hernan Galindez not had a save to make. His defence actually played well right in front of him, haven't they? They've blocked quite a few shots. They've been able to recover when people have been exposed that little bit. There's quality all around the field. I think when it settles just down just that little bit, perhaps there'll be less space for players to attack into, but so we'll see that little bit more caution, I imagine, in the second half. Just may need that extra spark of brilliance, to finally break the game open.
8 goals in the first Group E match, Germany 7, Curacao 1, but none so far in the second Group E match. At half-time in Philadelphia, it is Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0. Dotton.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Effin. This is The Nightclub on BBC Radio 5 Live, and here are the 5 Live News headlines.
Get really excited because it is quiz time. Are we ready? Yeah, you didn't know what to do.
No, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so here we go. This is our Do You Know daily quiz, which we're playing throughout the tournament. And just to warn you, he really effing loves quizzes. Okay?
So
he absolutely loves them.
After we did yesterday's quiz, I was on another podcast that had a quiz, and I won that one as well.
He's in form. Okay, here we go. So, our Do You Know quiz for day 3 of the tournament. It's linked to the number 3. Who? And it's fingers on buzzers.
Okay, where are the buzzers?
The buzzers are saying your name.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Who is the only player to have won the World Cup 3 times?
Oh.
Garincha?
No, that's not your name. Your name's Tim.
That's my middle name.
Imagine. Garincha is a good answer, but it's not correct.
Oh, it's Tim. It's Pele.
It is Pele.
I don't want to say Garincha first.
I know.
I was like, it's someone from...
I was going to go with a, more of a hipster
Oh
answer.
my God.
Yeah. So, yes, of course. He's won it 3 times. He won it 3 times. 58, 62 and 70. So well done.
Wearing the Brazil top
Tim.
as well.
Yeah,
I know.
It's not a great look, is it?
I need to hide after this.
Creepers. I don't know what to say.
I was thinking it would be like more niche, but
No.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes we're going to flip between, Enna Valencia and Pele on this show. Okay, now it is time to focus our attention on Scotland. They take on Haiti in Boston for their first World Cup match since their last entry back in 1998. They are the other 2 teams in Brazil and Morocco's group, so they want to get points on board from the start, obviously. Let's get the take of the Athletics' Jordan Campbell, who is in Boston, embedded with the Tartan Army, soaking up the atmosphere. Just tell us how the journey has been so far.
We don't wear the same kit. We don't tackle the same challenges. And we're not made up of 11. Try 33,000. Engineers.
Well, if you're asking me what the mood's like, you can probably see from the background that I'm at a very Scottish place in Boston right now. We're at the Royale, where there's a fundraising night for Street Soccer Scotland. We've got A-listers, B-listers, C-listers, Gerard Butler, Susan Boyle, Martin Compston from Line of Duty. We've got so many famous Scots who have come over here. Darren Fletcher's here as well, whose son's at the tournament. And you're just seeing so many people congregate to raise money for a good charity, but also the excitement here is hard to describe after 28 years away from the World Cup. So, yeah, they're talking about tens and tens of thousands being here tomorrow for the game against Haiti. Some are in New York, some are in Providence, and are travelling through to Boston. But, yeah, slowly but surely, I think Scotland are taking over Boston, and yeah, it's going to be a very busy 24 hours before the game, I think.
So Scotland have made 8 World Cups, but they've never got past the group stage, and they've never won more than a single game. And they obviously have a tough group, but the Athletics World Cup simulator, which is worth everyone checking out, has given them a 70% chance of progressing to the round of 32. Are you equally as optimistic, Jordan?
Yeah, well, simulators are all well and good, but I don't think simulators can account for just how much scar tissue Scotland fans carry when they're playing against a team that are 83rd in the world, I think. So someone they should beat, but those games are always the scariest ones for Scotland, given, you know, Lithuania, Georgia, Liechtenstein. We've had so many over the years, Kazakhstan, that have really sort of dented the nation's confidence. But Andy Robertson said something today which I think struck a chord, and that is that they have the trust of a nation. Now, this is the third tournament out of 4 that they've qualified for. This is now the new norm, and I think, you know, going into this game against Haiti in the opening game, you couldn't have asked for a better chance to qualify. 3 points might actually be enough to finish third. So, yeah, I think if they can do the job, which they should, then they can go into the Morocco game and the Brazil game and really attack it with the confidence of having the first win in over 20 odd years. So, yeah, it's so important that Scotland do the job.
And obviously someone going into the tournament with great confidence is Scott McTominay. Obviously, everyone's still talking about his overhead kick against Denmark. The definition of a big game player for Scotland, is he key to success in the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's beyond doubt now that Scott McTominay is the main man. I think everyone, the last 20...
Ivory Coast national anthem, I get goosebumps. For me, that's a no-brainer. I cannot think twice and say, okay, which team out? No, I go to Ivory Coast.
We have a very special guest in the building today. The legend himself, 17 major trophies, including the Champions League with my favorite club, Chelsea FC. 4 Premier League titles, a hero in his country of Côte d'Ivoire. A man that a lot of people honestly look up to. A man that has committed a lot of time to humanitarian efforts as well. Right. Which is something very close to my heart. Oh. So I appreciate you for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate you for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome to Europe. Yeah. What do you remember about football in Abidjan and some of the early days?
I'm born in Ivory Coast. I left the country when I was 6 years old to go to France and live with my uncle. And then I came back at age 9, and I think obviously I was more aware of everything, and that's when I started playing in the streets in my neighborhood with my friends, and barefoot and small goals, a bit like the Toma tournament. And I actually would use a bottle to organize tournaments. And we use a plastic bottle at the time as a trophy.
I want to talk briefly as well about your international career, if we may. Obviously, you chose to play for Côte d'Ivoire, but you also had the opportunity to play for France. I'd love to hear a little bit about that decision making and why you ultimately chose Côte d'Ivoire instead of France.
I left Ivory Coast when I was 6, like I told you, and I'm always going to be grateful to France. And I'm French also, the nationality. And when France plays, I support France, you know. But when I hear the Ivory Coast national anthem, I get goosebumps. And for me, that's a no-brainer. I cannot think twice and say, okay, which team out? No, I go to Ivory Coast. This is where, in my country, they say this is where they bury my, how do you call the... Yes, umbilical cord. Yes. That's where they bury my umbilical cord. So
understood.
I belong to Ivory Coast, so this is one. And also there are Thierry Henry, Nicolas Anelka, Robert Pires, Sylvain Wiltord, all these guys. I'm like, I'm never going to play there.
I don't know about all that, but I understand.
Welcome back, everybody. So South Africa's head coach Hugo Broos became the oldest manager to coach in a World Cup match today when Mexico just took on South Africa. So this is really interesting because the oldest coaches in World Cup history stand at this. He's 74 years old, among with some others, but then you can see Dick Advocaat is at the top, 78 years old. This is really interesting, isn't it, boys? Because I mean, we're going to see it kind of top and turn as the competition goes on as to who is the oldest manager in the competition. 74 years old, Grill, is that surprising to you?
No, not really.
No?
I don't think so. 74 used to be old. I don't think it's old anymore.
To be coaching in a World Cup, though, is that pretty impressive?
Oh, impressive, yeah, for sure. But I don't think it's crazy strange. I think they bring a lot of experience to the game. Obviously, this was not the first game was not a good example of it, but I think they bring a lot of experience to the game. The biggest thing I hear with guys that I played with that are managers now is that they have difficulty connecting with the youth and connecting with the younger guys. So I think that's probably a challenge when you get to 74 years old of what that looks like. But knowing the game and having experience, I mean, it's tough to beat when you're at that age. You understand a lot of things differently. So no, I'm not surprised by it.
Well, let's put it out there. It's international football.
Exactly.
Different dynamic, completely different from day-to-day football. So you can be old at that age to coach international football because you don't have to deal with these players for everyday consistent period in, week out of games. You get them for a small period of time, you do what you have to do and go. So you don't really have to connect that much because there's a different level of, when you go and represent your country or your nation, there's an expectancy of, got to go out there and perform and you got to do your job. I don't have to connect with you. You got to go and perform. Because if you don't perform, the fans will see it, the press will see it, and they'll handle you or give you...
And I suppose that's the difference, isn't it, with international football and club football? Because if you're a player and you don't like the manager, you just, a lot of the time, one of you leaves and goes somewhere else. In international football, you don't have that luxury. We're going to play some predictions now, but let's just start with this one. Obviously, we can't do yes or no for this. We're going to predict what age range we think the manager that wins the World Cup will be in. Will it be 50 to 60, 60 to 70, or 40 to 50, obviously, is the one before that?
How old is Deschamps? Yeah, Deschamps. I gotta look it up.
He's got to be easy. He's got to be
55.
He's got to be in the 50s.
Yeah, so you're going to go 50 to 60.
I think it's 57.
I'm going 50 to 60. I'm going.
Yeah, are you all going in that because you think Deschamps is going to win?
50 to 60.
Yeah.
Experience.
Experience
is priceless.
Well, it's also the players that he has at his disposal more than Deschamps himself.
That's very true. Speaking of experience, obviously we know 3 players could make history this World Cup. You've got Leo Messi with Argentina, Cristiano Ronaldo with Portugal, and then Memo Ochoa, who we'll see if he features, obviously, with Mexico. He's in the squad. He was on the bench today. Ronaldo with Portugal, what a fairy tale finish it will be, because you've got to imagine that this is Ronaldo and Messi's last World Cup, surely, right?
Well, yeah. Ronaldo, you never know. I think the guy always wants to push out.
No, this has to be it. This is it for them. I know. This is the final one for both these players.
Yeah, you think so? So all of these will be broken. They'll enter the 6-timer club, both of them. Leo Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. We'll wait and see with Ochoa.
Ochoa, I guarantee you, if Mexico win their second game, they'll let him play. They definitely will play him.
You think just because of the record, though, or do you think on merit?
Because of the record, 6th World Cup, in Mexico, I think that they'll do something for him and give him that opportunity to play a game, definitely.
OK, we'll see. All right, time now then to use the paddles. The first question is, will the most goals in a single men's World Cup be broken by a player? The current record stands at 1958. Fontaine with 13 goals we saw. Now it's a bigger tournament than ever, so will it be broken?
100%. We got more games.
Yes, Marco?
100%.
Nigel's
it's going to be broken.
No. Grell? So you think the Golden Boot winner will have over 13 goals?
Yes.
And who do you think it'll be, by the way?
I'm trying to remember who I picked. If it was between Kane or Mbappe, but between the two of them.
OK. And you're saying no, Grell?
There's a lot of teams. There's like, because the more teams, there's a lot, the quality's a little bit lower, and then there's one extra game. So that makes sense that you would think it would be broken, but 13 just seems high to me. Especially when now, during the group stage, you can manage your team a little bit more. You don't need to play the top players all the time. You want to actually get to the quarterfinal, the 16. You want to get to your best players fresh. So I don't think they'll be like playing every single game. The group stage games, you don't need to play all of them.
I agree with that. I think that there'll also be rotation as well as managers start to plan ahead. If you get the job done in the group stages, you're not going to play your top strikers. How many top strikers do we have nowadays in the sense of a number 9, traditional number 9s? There's not that many in the modern game now. And also, let's not forget that a lot of these players have played a lot of games already domestically in the season to go into this World Cup. I think 13 is a huge ask.
It's true because we saw the longest Champions League season ever, didn't we, in the last couple of seasons? OK, what about the most goals in a single men's World Cup team? The current record is from 1954 with Hungary, who had 27 goals. Will this record be broken?
Hasn't been since 1954?
No,
That's incredible to me.
No.
Marco, yes.
I think the game has opened up a lot. I think teams want to score. To your guys' point, there's more depth in the teams. They're going to keep going. Also, the first-place teams play a third-place team. One of the weaker sides, they can run up the scores in a lot of those matches. So, for me, it's a math thing. It's going to be yes.
27.
Whoever plays against Curacao that could score 27 goals in their first game. It's possible.
Resume this game that is at 0-0, but it was a good 0-0 as darkness begins to fall on Philadelphia, east coast of America, Pennsylvania, 8:10 local time. That's the time in Ecuador as well, where there will be many million watching in Quito and everywhere else. Ivory Coast are an hour behind us, so it's just ticked into a new day in Ivory Coast, and I'm sure likewise there will be plenty watching there as well. As the camera sweeps around this stadium and captures the massive yellow with a little splash of orange every now and then. Ivory Coast on the list of countries that are banned from attending this World Cup, along with Haiti and Iran and Senegal. And there was great frustration that that decision, or at least the ratification of that decision, came very late in the day. So that's a big shame for them, and I'm sure there will be many that wanted to come over. There are many that live in Philadelphia and are in the stadium, and they've watched their side defend pretty resolutely in that first half, and they'll need to do more of the same in the second, which is underway now on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Ivory Coast 0. Ecuador 0, with Ecuador in their dark blue shirts, white shorts and white socks, kicking from left to right in this second half. And Ivory Coast in orange from head to toe with a little bit of green trim. I'll run you through the two 11s when there is the first chance to do so. No substitutions at the break. The onus may be on Ivory Coast, given that their two centre midfielders, Seko Fofana and Frank Kessie, are both on yellow cards, as is right back Guela Doué. And based on some of the rough nature of the challenges in midfield, that might be one to watch out for. Ecuador on the attack, early left foot shot. Valencia strikes the base of the post via the goalkeeper. What's the referee given here? There may well have been a flag. Might have just gone straight out for a goal kick. Either way, Efenakoku, first move. Real chance of the second half.
Yeah, I think that's been flagged for a goal kick. Links up well with Gonzalo Plata. Nice reverse ball over the top of his head. Valencia made a run from that left flank to the middle, then played it to the man in the centre forward position. And Ivory Coast just that little bit of sleep. It was a better overhead pass and it was slightly more central, and Valencia's in on goal. Yeah, the Ivorian midfield just got to play very sensibly. The opening, the first 20 or so minutes of this second half, make sure those two senior players don't pick up another yellow card, of course, which would mean red for one of them.
Well, we saw 3 red cards in the opening game of this World Cup. There were only 4 in the entirety of Qatar 2022, and we saw 3 of them in the very first game of this tournament. Yeah, one to keep an eye on, the two centre midfielders for Ivory Coast, who are on the move now. Toure uses good strength to hold off Franco, who then uses some part of his anatomy to win the ball back for Ecuador, but only temporarily. Pepe now, it's all very close and tight and congested by the corner flag. Now it's worked into the penalty area, but Ecuador can clear their lines successfully enough and move the ball nicely to halfway. Plateau and Caicedo combine, and now Piero Hincapié strides over halfway for Ecuador, approaching the edge of the penalty area. Low ball across that was far too comfortable for Yaya Fofana, who makes a very straightforward catch.
Yeah, some nice early signs from Ecuador in the opening minutes of this second half. I thought it was a very good first half, actually. We didn't get the goal that we're always craving, but lots of good moments. Ecuador hitting the crossbar twice. Two great efforts, actually. John Yeboah and Minda with a slightly better chance. You will say that he's inside the box, some 8 yards out, kills it over the goalkeeper and around, but not able to keep it underneath the crossbar. Some bright moments as well from Les Elephants. Ivory Coast had their moments, largely through Yan Diomande, who was electric for most of it.
Yeah, very much looking forward to seeing him develop over the coming games and the coming years. BBC Radio 5 Live, 48 and a bit minutes played. Fofana is the Ivory Coast goalkeeper. Doué, Singo, Agbadou and Konan, the back four. Fofana and Kessie are the two holders that are both on yellow cards, and then further forward Toure, Diomande, Pepe and Wahi. Pepe had that one chance for Ivory Coast in the first half, side foot from a Diomande cross. And for Ecuador, Galindez is their goalkeeper. Hincapié, Pacho, Ordóñez and Franco are the back four, with Vite and Caicedo holding in midfield. Minda and Yeboah on the flanks, and then Plata and Valencia up front. That was a risky moment for Ivory Coast, with goalkeeper Fofana under pressure. He does clear downfield, and now Fofana bursting towards the penalty area, right-hand side, chops onto his left, back onto his right. Here's the opportunity for Diomande, who is leaning back, and his left foot shot fizzes over the crossbar. More bright moments, though, for Ivory Coast. This time, Diomande, who's been the provider for most of them, very nearly the beneficiary of good work from Fofana, but the left foot shot from Diomande over the bar.
Yeah, really well worked. Yeah, he's off balance, the youngster, right on the edge of the penalty area. Worked pretty well from that right side, with Seko Fofana making a fantastic run after Nicola Pepe, I think it was, who outsmarted three Ecuadorian players and then slid it down the right flank. I thought that he'd actually missed the opportunity, Seko Fofana, to cross the ball earlier, but picked out Diomande well enough. Youngster just not able to keep his balance and get that controlled shot, at least on target, to test the goalkeeper.
Well, despite Ecuador's dominance in that first half in terms of possession and the quality of chances created, there were enough flashes from Ivory Coast to tell us that they are very much in this game. No free kick on the rampaging Franco on that far side, despite his protestations. Caicedo snaps into a challenge, far side the Ecuadorian right, and then Hincapié wins his side of throw.
The best
opportunity position.
So sorry, the best opportunities have actually come when the game's just been a little bit stretched. When the tempo is a little bit steadier, slows down, and both teams are able to get themselves set.
Ivory Coast, effing loose in possession once again, but once again Ecuador can't profit from some rather slack play by Ivory Coast in that centre midfield. We saw that predominantly in the first 5 or 10 minutes, with Ivory Coast unable to settle, and we very nearly saw it again there.
Yeah, they were out-hustled in the first part of the game, but once they got a few touches and found themselves, most players got into a rhythm. That's a good steal, isn't it?
Konan is brilliantly challenged by Plateau, who now sets off, goes from his own half into the Ivorian half, then plays a pass that lacked the required pace and quality in the direction of Franco, who got a glare in the direction of Plateau, because that wasn't a well-hit pass. And now Ivory Coast can come forward on the right with Singo. Great ball across, and the crossbar is hit once again, and this time it's Eli Wahi for Ivory Coast. Remarkable. Great ball across, Wahi's little touch, and the crossbar hit this time from Ivory Coast.
lightning break once again. As soon as the game gets stretched a little bit, that's when the best opportunities occur. Super ball in from Yan Diomande, and why he just didn't connect with it clearly enough. He's coming in from the right side once again. Not easy to control, but he didn't get a firm connection on it, and it just comes off the top of the crossbar. I think he goes with, we'll see the replay again in a few moments, I'm sure. I think he went with the outside of his right boot. And always just that little bit more difficult to control. There's lots of pace on the cross, as you would expect, and what you need from that wide flank area when it's got to come or got to travel a long distance.
Diomande again for Ivory Coast. Ecuador suddenly looking nervy at the back. This resolute, strong defence being tested by Ivory Coast. Still 0-0 with 52 minutes played on 5 Live. Fofana opens up for the left foot shot, but it skew-ifs off the side of his boot, and there was an option to his left.
Yeah, got to pass it. That was wasteful from Seko Fofana. Oh, what a chance. And once again created by the young star, Yan Diomande.
Sebastian Bekasese, the Ecuadorian manager, is looking a little more agitated on the touchline. 45-year-old, no playing career of note. He was the long-time assistant to Jorge Sampaoli at Chile. He was appointed 6 games into qualifying. Says he was very much influenced by Sampaoli, and Marcelo Bielsa likes the high-intensity, quick-pressing game, and has been on this remarkable run. Lost his very first game in charge against Brazil, but unbeaten in the next 19. And it's why there's great expectation that this Ecuador side can at least match the achievements of 2006 when they made it through the group and into the knockout stages. And really, a team of this quality, you fancy, can go even further than that. But one game at a time.
Yeah, it's qualify for the knockout stages, minimum requirements, isn't it? And certainly achievable.
Ivory Coast looking to make the knockout stages for the very first time in their history, which is a little bit of a surprise considering the quality they had throughout the late noughties and early 2010s when they did qualify for 3 straight World Cups between 2006 and 2014, where they had the Touré brothers and Didier Drogba, Didier Zakora, Solomon Kalou, but they never progressed from the group. They were in some difficult groups. In Germany, they were 3rd behind Netherlands and Argentina, which is fair enough. In South Africa, they were behind Brazil and Portugal, but the disappointment will be in Brazil in 2014 when they were behind Colombia and Greece. And actually, they were on the verge of making the knockout stages in Brazil. They were drawing against Greece, and that would have kept them through, and then Georgios Samaras scored a 93rd minute penalty to send Greece through and Ivory Coast home. Ecuador on the attack. Yeboah, it opens up for him, plays the ball out to Minda, ball to the back post is well headed away. Ghislaine Conan was perfectly placed to ensure there wasn't an Ecuador head on the end of that, but still the Ecuadorians come forward. Lovely give and go, and then the left foot dragged effort from Pedro Vite. Will won that one back, didn't really hit it with the required connection, and it's out of play for an Ivory Coast goal kick, and it remains 0-0.
Yep, that was an anxious strike, wasn't it? We've seen a few of those. Pepe in the first half. They're just not keeping their composure for long enough as Ecuador look to make the first change of the evening.
And it is Sunderland's Nilson Angulo who is coming on to replace Alan Minna on one of the flanks. He's had a good season, Nilson Angulo, for Sunderland in the second half, but for Anderlecht he was very good. 7 goals and 8 assists, hence the move in February to Sunderland. Only played 9 times because of injury, but impressed enough. Ivory Coast also making changes, and Eli Wahi's game is over, and Ange Johan Boni is coming on for just his second cap. Like Wahi, only switched from France to Ivory Coast this year, in fact in May, and then made his debut against France in the weird and wonderful way that football works. So Ange Johan Boni is on, and so too is Amad Diallo, Manchester United's Amad Diallo, and Benzoamana Touré was the man to be replaced. So Diallo is on for Touré, Boni for Wahi, and for Ecuador, Angulo is on for Minda. So changes, Effen, 56 minutes into the game.
Yeah, ambitious change actually from the Ecuadorians. Bringing on more firepower, or firepower for firepower, freshening things up. That's a good sign that they actually want to try and win the game.
Missed header from Pacho, and here's Fofana of all players racing forward. He's got numbers left and right, offloaded to Pepe, and now Ahmad's ball across. His first involvement was very nearly an assist for a goal, but Ecuador deal with that well enough. Still though, Ivory Coast in the orange shirts on the attack. Kessie with a smooth pass with the instep to that far side, the right. Infield to Doué, a couple of touches with his right foot. Back to Kessie again, who's level with the edge of the penalty area. Right-hand side, Doué rolls his foot over the ball. Infield to Ahmad, backwards of square he goes. Agbadou, 25 yards out, lovely ball. Fofana, neat spin to control. Diamande now, running it in Capie again. A battle he enjoyed in the first half. He's away from 2 and 3 and shoots over the bar. Did brilliantly to make the move, to fashion the space, but his right foot shot was rushed, and over the bar it goes.
Beat 3 players. This time he's switched from the right flank to the left to accommodate Ahmad, who's come on the field, and he's gone through 2 players, hasn't he? Yeah. Caicedo's just a little bit nervous as well as he comes to approach him inside the box, some 8 yards out from the goal. So he's a little bit careful, the Chelsea man, and as a result, he almost pulls out of the challenge completely.
You can understand why there is so much excitement around Diamande. Liverpool very much linked with a move that will probably be 100 million plus if they are to make it. But he is certainly impressed in the 58 minutes that he has played here on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Also available on iPlayer, synced with the BBC One pictures. If you'd like that service, then hit the red button. Also on the iPlayer, here is Diamande again. He's got much more space this time. Went for the early ball, that's cleared. Fofana picks it up on the edge of the penalty area, immediately swarmed upon by several dark blue shirted players, and as such Ecuador cleared downfield. But this is a good little spell for Ivory Coast.
Yeah, they certainly seem to have that little bit extra firepower, don't they, in the final third. A little bit more dynamic on the flanks. Neither side has got a real traditional centre forward that they can rely upon, somebody who can, it appears, that can just steal a goal out of nothing, a half chance take it. We've seen quite a few opportunities now, half snatch, full snatch, and as a result, goalkeepers have not really worked, even though the crossbars have been.
3 times the crossbar has been hit, twice for Ecuador and once for Ivory Coast. Ecuador both in the first half, Ivory Coast in the second. Diamande troubling and worrying the Ecuador defence again, digs out another decent left-footed cross, and the stooping Joel Ordóñez nods the ball behind, and Ivory Coast have another corner with an hour gone in Philadelphia. And the Ivory Coast fans that are in the stadium, they've just appeared on the big screen, much to their delight, cheering and waving and dancing. Corner taken short. Fofana onto his right foot, dummies. He's got a better angle to shoot, which he doesn't really get it, but very nearly aided by a deflection. Galindez very relieved to drop on that. Fofana didn't really catch his shot, but it took a couple of ricochets.
Yeah, and thankfully straight into the arms of the Ecuadorian goalkeeper. Galindez is a lucky boy that there was, you said, no deviation with that shot, maybe just a slight touch. And certainly the AFCON champions from 2023 are looking the much stronger side right now.
Certainly are, and that could easily have squirmed under Galindez via a couple of deflections. Conan in his left-back position for Ivory Coast, closed down quickly by Plateau, who will race to the corner flag to try and keep this in, which he does not manage to do. And Ivory Coast want to take this throw in quickly in their left-back position. Guilan Conan, the Gil Vicente left-back, is ready to take this throw. Very nearly fully dark ahead or overhead in Philadelphia. Floodlights are shining bright on top of the roof, but the Ecuador fans still in very, very good voice. Those that have made the journey, they will be very well supported in this tournament. They head to Kansas City in a few days' time to play Curacao, which you feel, based on what we've seen so far from both Ecuador and Curacao, should be an Ecuador win. And then they end in New Jersey, the stadium that will host the World Cup final, where they will play Germany. Ivory Coast face Germany next in Toronto, and then play Curacao back in Philadelphia on that final round of matches. More changes for Ecuador. Angelo Preciado is coming on, the Atletico Mineiro right winger, and he is taking the place of Alan Franco, who gets a high five from the various Ecuador coaching staff. And also coming on is Angelo Preciado with his pink boots, white socks, very high up his legs. Can't actually see his legs because the socks crash into the shorts. Big flop of black hair. And also coming on, Jackson Porozzo, the Tijuana centre-back. I didn't see who he came. He came on for Alan Franco. So Alan Franco for Porozzo. Franco is operating at right back, so Porozzo presumably will drop in at right back. And Preciado is on for John Yeboah, who hit the crossbar in the first half. So a couple of like-for-like replacements for Ecuador. And we've already seen 5 changes, and we've only just gone over the hour mark. Efan, is that an indication maybe of the climate or the heat, or a little bit more energy required from both head coaches?
Yeah, perhaps, the climate. Sometimes it's a tactical switch, but I don't see any area of the field that's been overly exposed. It was very much, Diamande, torturing Nkapé on that far side. He'd be pleased that it's not it's not him now for the remainder of the game. Now he's switched over to the left. I think now you're looking towards the last sort of 20 minutes of the game. I think just make sure that there's enough energy in the middle of the park, especially in making sure that you lock down and your team is not hit on the counter-attack, which can quite easily happen.
Gonzalo Plata roaming forward for Ecuador, plays a bobbling, bumpy old pass into Preciado, whose first touch was to control a difficult pass, which he managed to do so, and Ecuador have it back in their defensive back line.
Wouldn't blame either coach if they... Sorry, I wouldn't blame either coach if they shut down the last 10 minutes of the game, said, you know what, a draw is a pretty good result, and we'll be looking to take 3 from Curacao and steal anything, if possible, from the Germany game.
Well, such is the nature of the tournament with 48 teams. As we were discussing before we came on air, Efan, based on what we've seen from Curacao, you think Ivory Coast and Ecuador should beat them quite comfortably. Take what you can against Germany, as you say, and maybe play for the draw here. 4 points would absolutely qualify you for the next phase. One of them in second and one of them in third. Whether you finish third or first in this group, then it could throw you pretty much anywhere because of the nature of the tournament. Finish third, you play a third-place team. Yeah. Again, that could be anyone. Finish third, and you play a first-place team. But if you finish second, you play second place in Group I. That's the France, Iraq, Norway, and Senegal group. That's a difficult group. So, finishing second, you're going to have a difficult round of 32 game.
Yeah, for both these two nations, just get through and just accept that it won't be easy, whoever you play in the knockout phase.
Ball out of play for an Ivory Coast throw just inside the Ecuador half, far side, the right. Opta analyst on X. 9 shots have hit the woodwork at this World Cup so far, and 4 have come in the game we're watching now on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. 3 for Ecuador, 1 for Ivory Coast. We have come very close to the first goal of the game, but with 65 minutes played, it remains Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0. Sweden-Tunisia to come in 90 minutes time with Maz Farouki and Clinton Morrison. That's the second game in Group F after Netherlands and Japan drew 2 apiece. Tomorrow, Group H underway, Spain, Cape Verde at 5, followed by Saudi Arabia, Uruguay at 11, and sandwiched in between that, Belgium, Egypt in Group G. All 3 games live with us on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds, with games available via BBC Television, also on the red button and iPlayer, where you can sync up the television pictures with our 5 Live commentary. 104 matches at this World Cup, 92 of them will be live on 5 Live. And tomorrow between 1 and 3 UK time, 8 and 10 New York time, we will have World Cup breakfast as it is there. Steve Crossman will be in a New York City diner to talk everything World Cup. Ecuador on the attack, ball dug out into the penalty area. Singo with an awkward header that doesn't really get it away. The left foot waved volley by Caicedo towards the edge of the penalty area. Ivory Coast clear to halfway, and now the green-booted Boni with lovely footwork to get away from Caicedo. He's a physical presence up there, Ange-Joan Boni, the Inter Milan striker, but he showed good fancy footwork there to move Ivory Coast from left to right. And now it's with Ahmad cutting it onto his right foot, back onto his left, gets to the byline. Is he going to run out of road? No, he got the ball across where Bonny was waiting. But Ecuador had plenty of bodies back there, and in fact it came off Bonny last, and it's out of play for an Ecuador goal kick. We are midway through the second half, so just glancing to see whether the hydration break will be inserted here. Seems to be the opportune moment to do so, and indeed the referee is saying play on, so we're going to have one final attack, Efan, and then we'll have the second half drinks break.
Yeah, the referee's in charge. He's going to have it right on time as scheduled.
Long ball forward for Valencia to run onto, and he holds it up nicely, waiting for Hincapié to support him. He goes to ground, wanted a free kick that the referee had absolutely no interest in giving. Kessie wanders away with it, and now Conan's on the edge of his own penalty area, slides a smooth pass towards the halfway line. That's intercepted, and now an opportunity for Preciado, recently introduced, lovely square pass, the left foot volley from Plateau, straight at Fofana, loose inside the box. Valencia can't control. Ecuador goal kick, really well hit Gonzalo Plateau. It opened up for him, but Fofana in the way.
Yeah, lovely strike. It was a nice cutback as well, and it was a super cutback actually, and the ball just sits up on the volley, just cut across the ball a little bit, 2 or 3 yards outside the box, just slightly right of centre, and it's always sort of fading back towards the goalkeeper, and you wouldn't expect the goalkeeper for Fofana to miss that, and he didn't. Parried it just a little bit high into the air, and wide of the goal 40, and Valencia just wasn't able to control it, the ball bouncing out.
And that is the final act of the third quarter, if you will. So all the players coming across to this near side to rehydrate and get some tactical instructions from Emerse Faye and Sebastian Becker-Sesse. Smashing of substitutions have been utilised, still more for both sides to use. Will we see a winner, Efan, is the big question. We're 21 minutes play, but once we have this hydration break, there will probably be still a good 24, 25 minutes to play. We've certainly had the chances.
Yeah, I hope so. I think, the game has been worthy of the goal, but you sometimes don't always get what you deserve in sport, and goalkeepers have not really had to work that much. You could say that's been just that little bit of lack of quality in the final third when it's absolutely mattered. But lots of good work in the middle of the park on the flanks, from both sides, and Ivory Coast in particular. Lotta holds his head in his hands and almost falls to the floor as if to say, well, that was perhaps one of my best opportunities. And goalkeepers, as usual, always trying to blame somebody else. There we go, he's flapping his arms, isn't he? Yeah, hey, Fofana. Why do you let him shoot? I'm not supposed to be working. Wasn't a bad stop, though.
It was a good save. Sebastian Becker-Sesse is leading a very animated talk with his Ecuador players. What can we read from his various gesticulations there? He seemed to be...
Keep the football.
Yeah.
Try and save energy if you can, but when the other team has been outhustling you so far for most of the second half, if not all of it, really. And then it's been largely a defensive rearguard, hasn't it? Without being totally under the pump.
Emerse Faye has dispensed of his black baseball cap, still looking very smart in his white shirt, black trousers, white trainers, having a word with his captain Frank Kessie. The overhead camera depicting a fine sight now. Philadelphia almost entirely in darkness. The massive jumbo screen that sits between the first tier and the second tier as the words "make some noise" as the camera pans around and spots some enthusiastic fans. It has been a great atmosphere. It really has come across, even though we're watching many thousands of miles away in Salford. The noise has been excellent, the atmosphere has been terrific, and for the pictures we are seeing, Efan, everyone is very much enjoying themselves. And there has been a few snippy comments about attendances at certain matches, but certainly here in the pictures we're seeing from Philadelphia, it looks like World Cup fever is very much alive.
Yeah, certainly in and around the grounds, I'm sure it's like that. The South American fans travel extremely well. When I was in Brazil in 2014, it felt, you could have been in Ecuador, you could have been in Uruguay, you could have been in many other South American nations. Of course, that was an even closer tournament for them. So this one is not too far away, and they are certainly here in the numbers. Of course, there's a massive population of South Americans, all over North America as well. And yeah, it makes for a really good atmosphere. And we've seen, some really good football as well this evening. As I said, it'll be great, to get a goal to give us a real grandstand finish. And as be neutrals, either way, doesn't really concern us, as long as we get at least one, and hopefully an equaliser.
Well, there is still plenty of time for that to happen. 72 minutes is on the clock, but there will be a good 5-6 minutes added on time because of the drinks break, but also the substitutions that we have seen. And as we have seen in quite a lot of the games already in this World Cup, they have come to life late on. Very late equaliser for Qatar yesterday against Switzerland. A couple of late goals in the game prior to ours. Netherlands 2, Japan 2. South Korea, Czech Republic only came to life in the second half. Ecuador forced a corner just after the second drinks break that is fizzed in to the front post, but headed powerfully away by Fofana. And now Diamande with his dreadlocks bouncing over halfway. That is a foul on Boni. That could be the first yellow card for Ecuador, and will be. And that's brandished in the direction of Vite, possibly. We'll get that confirmed in a moment. But Anjo Boni with some good work to get away from his man, and it's actually Jackson Barozzo who picks up the yellow card for clearly impeding what was a good-looking counter-attack.
Yeah, that was a good card to take to make sure that Ivory Coast don't bear down on your own goal. You'll accept that late in the game.
Ivory Coast with the two centre-backs exchanging passes. Now Conan on this near side, the left, right in front of the two head coaches. Diamande's touch was a little loose and it allowed the blue shirts to get a foot in. A couple of dragbacks now from Caicedo. Arrows the ball back into his centre-back position, where Pacho collects with the right white wristband on. That's his lucky wristband. He scored on his debut against Australia wearing it when he had a problematic wrist, and he's worn it ever since. Superstitious lot, footballers.
Absolutely. I've known some to play with their socks inside out to make sure they leave the dressing room, walking backwards, all sorts of stuff going on for footballers and their rituals.
Did you have any?
I didn't actually, no. No.
Oh, fair enough.
Not interesting at all, that is it? No.
No, I was hoping for a classic F1 anecdote there. You were good enough already, you didn't need any superstitions.
I've given you one story about the Mexican wave already.
That's very true. Boni into the penalty area. Excellent defending by Pacho, and then he slips at the crucial moment.
It's not a back pass.
No. They were
appealing.
Yeah, a few appeals, but he clearly slipped and didn't really know the direction of the ball that was going, so no chance of a back pass, and there was no real threat from Boni, who was a little bit too far away. But it's a couple of times now players have slipped. We saw that slip from Agbadou very early on in the game. Ecuador couldn't punish then. Very nearly roles reverse, but Ivory Coast not in a position to capitalise there.
Yes, but it's been about the only real error in the game that has led to a goal-scoring opportunity, which is somewhat surprising. We played 75 minutes.
Still.
It shows how well... Sorry, Chris, it shows how well both these teams defend.
Preciado to the byline, right-footed cross that is awkwardly cleared by a dangling Agbadou leg. Pacho back into the danger area, just outside the penalty area. Right-hand side, Ecuador going from left to right as we watch. Ordóñez infield, gets the ball back from Caicedo. He's going backwards here at the moment, but space is open on that left-hand side, and this is where the ball is going. PSG's Champions League winner Pacho, pink boots, offloads to Vite, who now takes over halfway, smoothly to that far side, the left, where Angulo is waiting. Haven't really mentioned Nilson Angulo's name too much since his introduction as a second-half substitute, but he's on the ball now with his blonde hair clearly visible. Angulo to the byline, left-hand side of the penalty area, runs out of road. Yeah. And promising attack has a rather disappointing end. Goal kick.
The energy is still there, isn't it? 77 minutes or so we played. The other side are looking as if they've settled for that 1 point, which is great to see.
And more changes in the offing. We are going to see Nottingham Forest's Ibrahim Sangare come onto the field, and no surprise that Seko Fofana is one of those players to be withdrawn on a yellow card. And Christ Oulé is also on in the place of Nicolas Pepe. Christ Oulé, who's another one of the encouraging youngsters for Ivory Coast, 20-year-old. Ecuador also making a couple of changes. Enner Valencia's game is over, and Kevin Rodriguez, who plies his trade in Belgium with Union Saint-Gilloise, 6'3" centre forward, a big presence up there. Mainly a substitute, only 9 of his 31 caps have been starts, but he did play 16 of the 18 qualifying games for Ecuador. 2 goals in 31 caps. He's on for Enner Valencia, who will not be getting his 50th Ecuadorian goal this evening, but just another threat for Ivory Coast to keep across the 6'3" Kevin Rodriguez. Ivory Coast in possession through midfield. They can't really make much headway there in what was a congested middle third of the field. Kessie with a nice little touch, gets his foot in. Ahmad spins away from a couple of challenges. 3, 4, does really well. 5. That was excellent football from Ahmad, Manchester United's Ahmad, who was actually one of the few players who probably suffered when Ruben Amorim was sacked by Manchester United. He hasn't really had much game time under Michael Carrick. Now there's a foul and a little coming together between Moises Caicedo and Christ Oulé, and that ends in a hug.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, he fouled him, and Caicedo didn't want to inflame the situation as Oulé grabbed his shirt and thought about starting a fight, and just calmed it all down as players off the Ivorian bench came to make sure their colleague was okay. Been played in a good spirit, actually.
Ivory Coast take the free kick quickly. Diomande infield. Oulé gets his first real touch of the game, wearing the white boots near side the left. Diomande again in between 2 players. Lovely one-touch football this from Ivory Coast. Is there an end product? Not at the moment, as the momentum of the attack is rather killed. That's a direct ball, though, from Christ Oulé into the feet of Ahmad, who couldn't quite repeat the twinkle toes of a couple of moments ago. That looks like handball. It is on Oulé, and Ecuador have this free kick just outside their own penalty area, and it remains with 11 minutes to play on 5 Live. Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0.
Yeah, just seeing a replay again of the Gonzalo Plata shot. Cuts across the ball.
68,274 has just been announced as the attendance, so that's pretty much a sellout. 65,827 is the capacity at the Philadelphia Stadium. And sometimes, Effin, when you hear attendances, and this is not just at the World Cup, this is across the board, you think, I'm not sure about that. But actually, on this occasion, I think we can agree that that probably is very accurate.
Yeah. I wouldn't dispute that.
No.
I wouldn't dispute that at all. They've seen some good football. I hope they feel as if they've got their money's worth. I'd like to have seen a couple of goals, of course. May well happen still.
Still may well happen. 10 minutes to play. We've seen the crossbar hit 4 times in this game. 3 times for Ecuador, once for Ivory Coast. Since then, though, hasn't really been too much goalmouth action, and the game has reverted to type, or at least the sort of game that many pundits were predicting prior to kickoff. 2 excellent defences in qualifying. Ivory Coast didn't concede a goal in their 10 matches. They won 8 of them. Worth saying that the calibre of opponent in their group wasn't the greatest. In fact, the average FIFA ranking of teams in their group were 131. So bear in mind, Ivory Coast are 33rd in the world. They were very much expected to come through the group with minimal fuss, but they didn't concede a goal. But then had that really impressive run when they had their warm-up matches, beating Scotland and more impressively beating France in France.
Yeah, peaking nicely, Chris, weren't they?
Yeah.
Before the tournament kicks off. If it does remain 0-0, it'll be one of the better ones at this tournament. I can assure the viewers of that. Lots to admire today from both sides. But Ivory Coast, certainly for me, have been the better side, especially in the second half. They've looked stronger. The players off the bench have had a little bit more quality in their game. As long as they don't make a mistake defensively, actually, it'd be hard to see either team conceding.
Effin Ekoku with us on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds, former Nigeria international. We have watched a good game. There's certainly enough evidence on this evening's showing from both sides if we assume the group goes to plan and Germany win it, and these two beat Curacao, one of these will be finishing third. They will trouble a group winner of some description.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want to be facing either of these in the last 32, would you? Here go Ivory Coast over halfway. Oulé to this near side, the left, and Diomande, full of running, continues to trouble the back line of Ecuador. Can't make much progress there, so has to retreat. The little give and go between Oulé and Conan, and now all the way back to Sangare, who very much grew into his role at Nottingham Forest, had a difficult start, making the rather high-profile move from Ajax. Didn't really help that he had a couple of injury-hit seasons, but he's really grown into his role for Nottingham Forest, certainly allowing the likes of Elliot Anderson to flourish. Diomande, great feed into the box, just behind Conan, who may well have been offside. And the ball is out of play for a goal kick anyway. Diomande, he might have fancied that himself. He went for the rather intricate ball through to Conan, who could only prod it wide.
Yeah, he was at full stretch. He does well, actually, you know, to get past O'Donnell. He's just about 10 yards outside the box, and then another Ecuadorian player comes diving in. Caicedo's a little bit cautious about trying to tackle him inside the box, and Conan's actually overrun the play. Couldn't quite see whether he was offside or not. Just that full stretch as well, wasn't he, the winger Diomande? MS5 is he's almost having a fit on the sideline. I don't know whether he thought it was a foul or whether he thought it should have been a corner or not. I'm not sure what he said.
I'm not sure what he was
about.
He came herring down the touchline. He almost pulled off his shirt in frustration. Referee has stopped the game here because Joel Ordonez, the Club Brugge centre-back, needs some treatment. He's limping off the field. Another one whose right hand is very heavily strapped, and another one who may well be making a high-profile move after this World Cup. He's only 22, certainly linked with many a Premier League club. He's had a very good season in Belgium, and he's coming off the field to get some treatment on what looks like a troublesome groin. Well, those operating the cameras have had a very entertaining evening, picking out some weird and wonderful attire. And the game is back underway, which is probably a good thing, so I don't need to describe some of the costumes on display, because it would take me much of the rest of the game, I think.
Nothing normal about a World Cup.
No. Referee is blowing his whistle rather fussily here, and he's, I think, waving presumably Ordonez back onto the field of play. He is, and he's rejoined in his centre-back position. Ivory Coast have it in their back line. Diomande, that's a lovely touch with his instep to find Oulé, who is clipped and fouled just inside the Ivory Coast half. He wants to get on with things very quickly, and Sangare will take this free kick backwards of square and find the ponytailed Wilfried Singo in his orange shirt. Ivory Coast going from right to left in this second half. Ahmad sets on his way and wants the throw but won't get the throw. That was a clever piece of defending by Angulo on that far side. So Ecuador have this throw in their left-back position. And FN, we have 5 minutes to find a goal in this Group E opener between Ecuador and Ivory Coast in Philadelphia.
I'll be shutting down if I was either coach right now. Just getting the message across to the players, just make sure that we have a solid back four and a couple of defenders, a couple of midfielders in front to make sure we protect at all costs. And I'll give a license to 2 or 3 players, especially subs with fresh legs, to see what they can do in the final third, but make sure that we do not get hit on the counter-attack.
Angulo is clipped on his way forward by Guile Doué, who has been booked, so that's a rather risky challenge from Doué. Oh, it was 2 arms on the shoulder as well. I tell you what, Efan, we have seen yellow cards for that. And in fact, Angulo unwisely brandishes the imaginary yellow card. I'm not sure the referee saw that, because if he had done, then he would have been booked. Yeah. But is Doué rather fortunate there?
Yeah, I would have said that would have been a very harsh second yellow card. I think the referee's actually had a very good game. Led a few things go in the opening 15 or 20 minutes, then once he decided to get the cards out, I thought maybe we're going to see a card fest, but it certainly wasn't the case. It wasn't the case for Fana and Frank Kessie, the Ivorian captain, were yellow carded, but since then he's largely kept them in his pocket, just making sure he keeps control of the game. I don't think that was necessary to flash another yellow there.
Yeah, Francois Le Texier, the late replacement for Michael Oliver, who was due to referee this game until he picked up an injury, so we wait to see whether we'll see him in this tournament. Ecuador free kick. Caicedo swings it into the back post, headed over the top by Ordóñez, who was arriving late. Now Ecuador want the corner. Referee gives the corner.
Yeah, they've got one. Well, corners get reviewed, don't they? So,
well, they do.
Yeah, somebody's. It was clearly the corner as well. Obviously not to the referee to begin with yet. Islan Kone turns his back and just hits him, I think, on the shoulder and goes over. So they got that one right. I'm actually quite pleased about that. You know that.
Well, they won't be awarded, but they can be rescinded.
Yeah.
So if a corner has been given when it shouldn't have been given, then they can step in, but they can't retrospectively award corners.
That looked like that one was awarded, though, wasn't it?
It did, yes, I think, absolutely. Assistant
delay,
gave that.
wasn't it? Yeah.
So, Ecuador corner, which will be swung in by Nilson Angulo. Blonde hair glinting, right-footed. Acrobatic attempt by Ordóñez. Didn't really make much contact. Ahmad tries to run out of the penalty area. Singo then goes shoulder to shoulder with Preciado. That was a good fair challenge. And then Wilfred Singo,
nothing wrong with that.
Rather unnecessarily, then yells in the ear of Preciado. I think to say exactly that, Efan. There was nothing wrong with that get-up.
Old-fashioned shoulder barge. Used to make a living doing that.
Well, we've seen 4 yellow cards in this game, Efan, and I guarantee in your heady Wimbledon days we wouldn't have seen any for challenges that we've seen today.
Oh, it wasn't just Wimbledon who played rough and tough. Sometimes it was every single team in the league, Chris. Everybody had to have players out who were able to stand up for themselves.
Rather wisely, Goela Due is being replaced here. I think it was rather, he could easily have been sent off by another referee. So Odilon Kosunu, the Atalanta centre-back, is on in his place. League titles with Club Brugge and Leverkusen. He was part of Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen during their wonderful season.
Yeah, good player.
And he's on to play the final minute and a bit of this Group E game in Philadelphia that is still Ivory Coast 0, Ecuador 0. There will be, you'd imagine, 5 or 6 minutes, possibly more, added on. And then it is all eyes on Group F, Sweden against Tunisia, getting underway at 3 a.m. UK time. Maz Faruqi and Clinton Morrison bringing you that on 5 Live in BBC Sounds. Spain, Cape Verde tomorrow at 5. Belgium, Egypt from Group G at 8, and then the other 2 teams in Group H along with Spain and Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay underway at 11 o'clock in Miami. All games on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. 30 seconds of normal time to play. Here goes Songo racing forward. There's space for Ahmad. Lovely effort. Brilliant goal. Ivory Coast have snatched it right at the death. And it is Amad Diallo who steers it expertly into the corner. And the Ivory Coast players rush towards him. He disappears under a sea of orange as the substitutes join in front of the stunned Ecuador fans. And in the 90th minute, Ivory Coast 1, Ecuador 0.
Well, what a finish from Amad Diallo after superb work from Wilfred Singo on that far side. Once again, Chris, it's broken play, isn't it? The athletic ability of the Ivorian players still running strong late in the game, and he just kept his composure when absolutely it was required getting into the box. I've talked about how there wasn't that quality in the final third from either side. We've not seen it really throughout. Quite a few players have snatched at chances, but Singo did superbly well. Yeah, he gets to the edge of the box on the right side, he cuts it back, and Amad just opens up his body and opens up the foot and side foots it past the goalkeeper into the side netting from some 14 yards out, just inside the penalty box. That's a superb finish. Nice and controlled. He's also fresh, a substitute, fresh mind, fresh body. Great goal. And you've got to say Ivory Coast probably deserve it.
Scenes of wild celebrations. Amad Diallo off the bench to surely win the game for Ivory Coast. He scored a very similar goal in their warm-up game against France when he opened up his body and guided it into the corner, and he's done exactly the same again tonight. Wilfred Singo made it with a brilliantly bombarding run down the right.
Run.
And there was Amad to side foot the ball into the corner for his 7th Ivory Coast goal on his 18th cap. He's been a key player under Emerse Faye, whose celebration, he jumped miles into the Philadelphia sky, thumping the air. This could be a huge result for Ivory Coast. 7 minutes of added on time to play in Philadelphia. A game that looked destined to finish 0-0 has Ivory Coast in front, and now the onus on Ecuador to try and find an equaliser. But it always felt a game, Effin, that would have a goal. We've just had to wait an awfully long time for it.
Yeah, a very, very long time, you know, towards the end of 90 minutes. And so often, you know, the run and a dribble, whatever you do outside the box, you know, the build-up play, the hors d'oeuvres, if you like, is the easy part. Just having the composure and the vision, the skill, the mental ability to see the right pass to pick it. The execution was superb. Enough weight on the ball that Diallo didn't have to force it. He just side-footed the ball past the goalkeeper with enough pace on the cross. Superb goal.
And so, with 2 and a bit minutes of the 7 minutes played, Ivory Coast 1, Ecuador 0 on 5 Live. Ivory Coast will be joining Germany at the top of Group E, with both Ecuador and Curacao pointless after the opening game, unless Ecuador can find an equaliser with 4 minutes to play. Their 19-game unbeaten run in serious jeopardy in Game 1 of the 2026 World Cup. 19 games unbeaten, 13 clean sheets in that, but they will not be keeping one this evening. Singo made it, Ahmad finished it, and this Ivory Coast team are here to perform at this World Cup, and they will be a threat for anyone. Free kick for Ivory Coast, deep inside their own half. They will be in time-wasting mode now. Fofana delivers this free kick long and deep into the Ecuador half. Ordonez gets his head on that. Picked up by Vite, who now looks long. Ecuador have to go long now. Kevin Rodriguez, 6'3" up front, is the obvious target. He's not really had an impact in this game since his introduction 13 minutes ago. Diamande, who has been so impressive, lovely feet to flick the ball away from Preciado. Conan now approaching the edge of the penalty area. He's got options left and right. Ahmad goes for goal again with his left foot, this time from a long way out. Hit it well enough, but straight down the throat of Hernan Galindez, and it remains 1-0 Ivory Coast.
That was ambitious. They'd be looking to keep the ball just a little bit longer. If I was the Ivorian coach, be disappointed that the ball goes straight into the arms of the goalkeeper. I know in the days of multi-ball it doesn't matter too much, but once upon a time you'd be happy if you hit the ball some 20 yards behind the goal.
What do Ecuador have left? Vite in the centre of midfield rolls the ball through the centre circle. Ordonez lingers forward. Preciado spaced across with his right foot, and it's a good-looking one to the back post. Incapié was there. Singo, who made the goal, may have prevented one there by nodding the ball behind. Free corner was about to be taken quickly, but Ecuador decide not to. And instead, the big players can roam forward, Efan, with 2 minutes to play.
They've got to keep their concentration now, Ivory Coast. We've seen we've seen a couple of late goals in this World Cup. Japan, Qatar, anybody else with a late goal to stun the opposition?
No, they have been the late goals in this tournament into the final 2 minutes. Chelsea's Moises Caicedo, left arm aloft, a sea of yellow behind him, hoping for an equaliser. Into the front post, it was towards Rodriguez, headed away and out for another Ecuador corner. So the big players will remain forward. Anxious looks in the Ecuador support, all in their yellow shirts, many of them standing now behind the goal. In comes the Caicedo corner, right underneath the crossbar. Fofana with an excellent punch, and now Ahmad can hurtle forward in his orange shirt, and if he plays the right pass, Diamande could be in. It's a fine pass. Diamande can't get away from Preciado, but he takes it inadvertently away from his goalkeeper and very nearly concedes the corner. He has relinquished possession. Diamande wins it back, and Ivory Coast, if they just keep the ball for the next minute, will be recording their first win of the 2026 World Cup. And for a team that is yet to get out of the group stage in World Cup history, this would be a huge result, and
absolutely massive.
They'd almost be there with 3 points, even at this early stage.
Yeah, you would say that there's almost no way that they wouldn't be able to get at least one more point.
especially with Curacao to come, but still chances for Ecuador. Angulo couldn't escape the attentions of Singo, who's had a very good few minutes. Actually, it was Kasunu on that occasion that was in the way of that to prevent Angulo bursting forward. Final 30 seconds. The atmosphere is completely died in Philadelphia because 80, maybe 90% of the supporters in the stadium wearing the yellow of Ecuador, but they're on the back foot again, and it's with Ahmad, who's in the penalty area. Options in the middle, onto his left foot. It's Ulay who hits it, but hits it miles over the crossbar. May have been better off keeping that, but with that right foot shot over the bar, we have now played the 7 minutes of additional time. One final chance maybe for Ecuador. Hincapié launches it forward. Another one headed away. Picked up in the centre circle by Plata. We're looking at the referee who waves play on. It looked like there was a foul by Caicedo, but Lectesia happy to wave play on Ordóñez. They're going backwards here, Ecuador. Really bizarre sequence of play from the Ecuador back line, but now they are moving forward. It's Angulo, 2 yards in from the touchline. Deflected cross into the penalty area. Here's the chance for Hincapié. Lovely ball back into the penalty area. Down goes Rodriguez under a fair challenge. Fofana does not keep the ball in play. Ecuador have a corner, and this could well be the final moment of the game. Ivory Coast still lead 1-0.
Yeah, Kasuna with a big challenge. He stuck his leg out and just took it away from Angulo, I think it was. That was good defending, but surely this is going to be the last opportunity now for Ecuador. And so far they've not looked dangerous at all from set pieces.
One final moment for Ecuador to equalise in a game that they've hit the crossbar in 3 times. This will surely be the last action of the game. We have played 8 minutes now, 7 were added. Sebastian Becaseke can't watch. Here comes the Caicedo corner. It's another front post. In go the heads. Hincapié was there. And is that it? Referee, I don't think has blown the full-time whistle. I think several of the Ivory Coast players think they have. He's getting a word from the VAR. Now he does blow the final whistle. And Ivory Coast can celebrate a big win in their Group E opener. Amad Diallo with the winner, 90th minute when he steered home Singo's cross. Ecuador had hit the crossbar 3 times. They had the better chances, but Amad off the bench to win the game for Ivory Coast. And for a team that have never progressed beyond the group stage in World Cups, they have a wonderful chance given to them by this 1-0 victory over Ecuador. And the stadium in Philadelphia, Effen, is stunned because Ivory Coast have won the game.
Yeah, well, it was largely filled with yellow shirts, wasn't it, from the nation of Ecuador? But it's the elephant, it's the orange and the green splash from West Africa that has been triumphant tonight. And as I said, after that goal went in, I think the best team has won. More quality from the bench. They look the stronger side physically as well. Emma's Fame